Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Amateur Experts Podcast, where we are experts on absolutely nothing. Your host, Landon Oliver, here with my co host, Andrew Scott. And today's episode is a little bit different. We have a mid season team outlook we're doing where we're going to list all the teams in different tiers that we have pulled up, give you a little discussion, kind of do it together, and you guys can give us our feedback, and then also
Little sneak peek if you're on YouTube. Little
yeah,
tear sneak peek.
there we go. And if you and if you stay around for after that, we are just going to go over some trade deadline, just kind of talk, like we normally do on these Tuesday shows. And that's pretty much it. But it is going to be an exciting show today. Really, never a
So much
dull
to
moment,
talk
man.
about, man.
Yeah, man. There's never a dull moment, and we just want to kick it off right now. First of all, I just want to kick it off with the condolences to the young female that passed away due to the Henry Ruggs accident, her and her family. I want to go ahead and just get this out of the way because it's such a sad thing to talk about. And really, like, there's not really even much to say about it other than just like, just it's crazy how shit can change in just an instant. Just one dumb decision can like shape the lives of so many people. And yeah, it's a bad situation all around. There is no excuse to drink and drive, especially when you have the type of resources that somebody like he has. Um, and I hope for her family's sake that they're able to somehow find peace through all this, and that she, her soul can rest in peace. And yeah, don't drink and drive, guys. And man, it seems like the more news that comes out about it too, like it just gets worse. Like every time somebody brings up something new, it's worse. And I'm not here to talk about the specifics of it. And
Nah, they're on the internet if you want to know about them. But
yeah,
it's gross.
yeah,
I mean, look. I'm not one that is, that would recommend judging somebody on their worst day by any means. I've made plenty of my own mistakes that just don't get publicized the way somebody like Henry Ruggs does. Granted, not of that magnitude, but
I was gonna say
man,
your mistakes don't cost lives. So it's a little,
no,
different.
I have not costed lives yet. But it's just stuff like that, man. It's inexcusable. I mean, you've got resources at your disposal. You've got money at your disposal to where if you are 2 times the legal limit, there's no reason you should ever get behind a vehicle. You've got way too many options to get you home safely and to make sure that everybody else on the road is safe. To where that should just never happen. Even if you don't have the resources that Henry Ruggs has, there's too many options out there for this to happen and for this to still be happening. And it's disgusting. And it didn't used to scare me as much before I had kids, but now that I have kids, every time something like this happens, my mind instantly goes to what if that was my wife and kids that
And
were in the car?
she was young, man.
Yeah, she
23 years old.
23. Yeah,
23,
like that's somebody's kid that they lost.
whole life ahead of her.
Yeah,
And like the dog too, which I'm a big
yeah,
animal lover. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. So that's where my mind goes anytime something
yeah.
like this happens.
I
And
will. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this because we have so much to talk about, and it is such a shitty subject. But I will say this, and I'm sure Drew kind of feels the same way as I do. If anybody's listening to this show, if you have my number, if you have Drew's number, if you follow me on Twitter, anything like that, even if you don't live in the same city, if you are drunk and you need a ride home, I will pay for an Uber for you. Even if, like I said, if we don't live near each other, if we do live near each other, I will come pick you up no matter the time. Doesn't matter. I mean, I'll probably be pissed off if you call me at 3 a.m., but I would rather be a little bit angry for 25 minutes than, have something like this happen to you or to another person, kind of
yeah,
like in this scenario. So yeah, like I said, if
most nights I'm up late, man. I'm a night owl. So look, yeah, those the people that know me that have my number, if y'all are in this predicament, do not get behind that damn wheel, man. Just call me or text me or something, man, and I'll like we'll figure it out. But
Yeah,
there's always a better solution than driving drunk. So just don't do it, man. Don't. Just stop. I don't know why this is still a problem, man. People just gotta stop. It's
yeah,
it's it's irritating. This shit
it,
pisses me off.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then, like I said, even if we don't live near each other, I'll pay for the Uber. I don't care. I just, six, me and Emily were out in Indianapolis this last weekend, and we had a little bit to drink, at dinner and all that stuff.
Right.
We Our hotel was even a mile down the road from where we ate at. So I mean, it wasn't even like it's a long drive. We still called an Uber. It cost
Yeah.
me $5. $5. So I mean, like if that's the cost of what it takes to save a life, whether it's mine, whether it's Emily's, whether it's yours or your family's,
That
or
ain't
whether it's
shit,
some
man.
stranger, yeah, whether it's some stranger, man, like if it's
Everybody's life is worth $5. Like
yeah,
everybody's.
yeah, I don't even care if it's you know, I'm sure her family would give hundreds and
Yeah,
millions
ask them how much money they would pay to get their
to get
daughter back.
yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah.
that
So
shit sucks,
and,
man.
and,
That
and,
was so
I
depressing. It
will
just kept getting more depressing. It just every
that's what I'm
20
saying.
minutes, it just kept getting worse.
Yeah. And man, it's such a shitty situation. And then um look, and I will say this about the NFL, because this might actually directly affect our show. Um, and this is probably the only like negative thing I will say like too much, because I don't want to like I mean, I realistically I could go the fuck off on the dude and like really go off, but I'm
Nobody
not.
would blame you.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not casting that stone. Because there's so many people that already are. My voice doesn't amount to anything. It doesn't, it doesn't matter. But I will say this about the NFL. If that dude ever plays another snap in the NFL, if he gets signed to another contract in the NFL, I'm out. I'm done. I'm like, I will not support the league. I will not talk about the league. I will not watch the league. I'm I'm out. There's been so many instances already of, you know, domestic violence, I mean, the laundry list goes on and on and on. Um, but whenever it gets to the point of like costing lives, um, and this was always my biggest worry about a team in Las Vegas. Because I mean, dude, we knew each other at at that younger age too. Like, can you imagine being 22 years old, getting handed a million, like not even a million,
Millions.
millions of dollars, and getting dropped in Las Vegas? Like, I mean, it's I know it's cool for the league from like a gambling perspective and a money perspective. I can tell you right now, Henry Ruggs ain't going to be the last one. That the team being in that spot is going to cost some careers. Hopefully not to the magnitude of losing somebody's life, but that it's going to cost some careers having a team in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I hope this is the last time we see something of this magnitude, but hopefully the league at least sends a clear message that if this was to happen again, you're not going to have a career waiting for you whenever the legal proceedings are over.
Yeah.
Because it would be pretty discouraging to to see something like this just get swept to the side. But the
And
NFL has swept a lot of
I was
stuff
gonna
to the
say,
side over the
that's what I was
years.
gonna say. I was say like it's sad too that we even have to have that thought, because the NFL has set such a precedent of
Yeah, because the reality is it could happen. And are you
yeah.
like, are we
Say-
really
yeah,
going to be
say he gets,
surprised?
say he gets 2 or 3 years, he gets a light sentence, which whenever you have that much money and that kind of profile is not off the table.
No,
Um,
especially if he gives the family a lot of money and they go easy on him.
yeah.
I mean,
I mean, yeah, I mean, realistically, he gets out when he's 25 or so. They're gonna look at the fact that you ran a 4.2, and they're not gonna give two shits about what you do in your personal life. Um, so yeah. Now, granted, like I said, he made a mistake, but also too, like whenever I knew I wasn't wanting to get on this subject. I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there. Let's move on to the next subject.
Look, hey, so you went to a football game this weekend, and granted, the results weren't exactly positive, but let's like you made a you.
Ah, we're going
It's
from
gotta
one bad subject to another bad
look.
subject.
At least we went from
Oh,
really bad to not as bad. So
it wasn't as bad.
we're gonna crank the positivity up here. We're gonna work our way toward eventually the Rams trading for Von Miller. We're gonna get
Yeah,
to the top of the top.
yeah.
Um,
We get the good news for you, and then me, it's just like a shit sandwich. That's
yeah,
all.
yeah. So we're gonna work our
Um,
way up. But so you went to Indy this past weekend.
I did go to Indy this last weekend, and it was it was like, look,
That was
outside
a
of the
good game.
outcome, dude, it's a damn good game. Damn
I
good
was on
game.
an emotional roller coaster
Oh,
watching it on my phone for the like. I
God,
didn't get to
man.
watch most of the game. We were visiting family.
I feel like this is
Dude, I was on the way home watching the game on my phone. The fourth quarter was like all I got to watch, and I was wrapped up in how the game was going because the Rams game was already out of reach by then. So
that's
I wasn't really watching that, and I was watching the other noon game I was really interested in was the Rams and or was the Colts and Titans game. And I turned that game on, man. It was just like nonstop insanity, especially those last few minutes. And the whole time I'm sitting here thinking, I cannot imagine what Landon is going through in that stadium right now, especially
just to
whenever
let you
Wentz
know.
threw that pick. They went back for a touchdown.
Yeah, so
I was like,
I had two people message me throughout that game, like two separate people. They don't know each other. They're not connected. Just separate friends from different groups. Two
right.
people texted me during that game and said, "I'm praying for you, brother." Like literally, because like I felt so bad. Like Emily had a good time. It was her first NFL game. Um,
That's good.
she doesn't have a horse in the race. Like I say that as a Colts fan.
Yeah,
But
yo.
she's there for me, and she actually had a good time. She had actually such a good time in downtown Indy. She loved the city. We went to the zoo. We went to a couple. We went to a Brazilian steakhouse where they bring the meat to the table and like hand
Oh
carve it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Those were fun.
yeah, we
Yeah,
did that, and then of course we went to Harry and Izzy's for lunch the next day because I got to have that. St. Elmo doesn't open till 4 p.m. and we already wanted to be on the road. But I always make it a point to stop into one of the St. Elmo's, either there or one of the sister restaurants, and eat every time I'm in Indy. The shrimp cocktail is ridiculous. Shout out to our waiter also, who we were asking if we could buy some shrimp cocktail sauce, and they do sell it there in the grocery stores. He said it's not as fresh. It's not the same kind of thing that you get at the restaurant.
right.
Free of charge, dude gave us a big tub of it for free of
Oh,
charge to put it on our to-go bag.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and if you've never had it, man, it's such a crazy feeling. Like they use a lot of horseradish, so it's a really intense heat at the start. Like I mean, it clears you up, and the back of your head tingles. Like it feels like somebody smacks the back of your head, and it's so good. But yeah, to get back to the game, so I'm watching the game. This is what I was the funny thing I was telling you about. So we're watching the game. Everything's it was a good game. The referees for both sides, I ain't talking about the Colts side, for both sides, man, the referees did so much to take over that game. Which going into the game, I told Emily, I was like, this official crew has thrown the second most flags in the NFL this year.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, so I already knew going into it, it was going to be that. Apparently, they really wanted to be first. They didn't like being second,
Gotta kick it
because
up a
because
notch. Gotta pump those numbers up.
yeah, man, they tried their damnedest to be first, and even then, they somehow still missed plenty of calls. I think Jonathan Taylor had like 60 something yards called back on like phantom holding calls, like they weren't holding calls. Um, but I'll say this: the game started out good, started out on
Right.
fire.
Yeah.
Touchdown.
Michael
You get a,
Pittman came
you get a
out
pick.
blasting.
Yeah, like that was what I predicted. I was like, man, Pittman's gonna have a big game. Wentz is gonna throw
Carson
5
Wentz is gonna throw
touchdowns.
5 TDs. Yeah.
Like we're going off. Like this is the game we're finally healthy. Here we go. JT's a monster. Um,
And then the NFL had
and
to remind you that it was a division game.
yeah, and this was pretty much our season, like legit. Like this was like we lose this game, we're essentially 4 games out of the, even though the Titans only have a 3-game lead, we're essentially 4 games out because now they've swept the season series.
Yeah,
And
so you can't afford to tie.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we can't tie to get in. We have to gain a gain on them. They're 6-2, we're 3-5. So this was pretty much the season. And for whatever reason, once again, man, it's the same shit that's in Baltimore, which I'm not gonna go on too much of a rant, but like Jonathan Taylor was like just he was eating that game. Like
That
he,
officiating crew should throw a flag on Frank Wright for
oh my god,
underutilizing Jonathan Taylor. This shit don't make
16
no
carries, and he
sense.
had
Don't
Carson
make
Wentz
no sense.
52 dropbacks for Carson Wentz to
Makes no
16
sense.
carries for Jonathan Taylor.
One of the most talented running backs in the league, and he's
The
only
look, and
getting
I'll tell
16
you right now,
carries.
and I don't know if it was because of the injury, but I have seen Derrick Henry play multiple times. I'll tell you right now, and I'm gonna get some shit for this. I don't give a fuck because I saw it with my own two eyes. Jonathan Taylor is a better running back. He is a better running back. He was creating more. He was hitting holes better. He was
I,
explosive. Like
I don't think it's a fair game to
he's not as big
I don't
and
think it's a
so as
fair game
bruising.
to make that decision off of, though, because the Colts are a much better run defense than the Titans are. So Jonathan
They're a
Taylor
good run
had
defense.
Jonathan Taylor had a matchup advantage there where he had a lighter run defense to run against, and the Derrick
Makes it even more
Henry,
criminal.
the
Makes it
Derrick,
even
yeah,
more.
yeah, it makes it even stupider that he was so
And it's the
underutilized.
same thing. It's
Absolutely.
the same thing that happened in Baltimore. Like it's the same thing. And this is the thing. This is the perfect comparison. So there's a couple stories I want to tell. One, so me and Emily are up there. Carson Wentz does, the end zone thing, that he
Oh,
throws a pick at the
the
end of it.
interception, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even stay for the end of it. I immediately got up and like grabbed her and we just walked out. Um, as we
Oh
were walking,
no.
yeah, so as we got down to the lower level, we kept hearing cheers and I'm like, shit, so so we go into the 100 levels. We were up in like the 400s.
Yeah.
So we didn't have bad seats at all, but
No, whenever I went and
after
watched the
that,
Rams game, we were in the 400s and the
yeah,
seats were terrific.
yeah, so we were in the 400s. After he threw the pick, there was like a ton of people that left. So as they're
Right. I
marching
saw
back down
that.
the
Yeah.
field, yeah, I kept hearing, cheers. So we go back. We get down in the 100s. Like the security guards at that
The
point,
escorts were gone and
yeah,
stuff.
they were standing there just watching the game. Like they didn't give a shit. So we just walked in there and just found a couple seats and sat there. We were right at the corner of the end zone, basically.
Nice.
And so we're sitting there. Before that, Emily told me, she said, like, I'm just bad luck. You probably shouldn't have brought me. As we're walking
Oh.
out, they're making the comeback. And she goes, see, the further away you get me from them, the better off they do. She goes, we're walking away. They're doing good. She turns to me and she goes, are you sure you don't want to go back? Because, we paid, however, hundreds of dollars, $400 or $500 to
Right.
get down there.
Right.
And she's like, you sure you don't want to go back to, finish the game, if they make a comeback? And I was like, fuck, like, yeah, I want to go back. So
Of course.
we go back. So we get close. We close down there. Like I said, we go down to the 100s just as, they tie the game. Going to overtime, we get the toss. Then overtime ensues. Wentz throws the other pick. And she goes, see, we should have just walked out. You should have just kept me walking. You shouldn't have let me back into the stadium because we're leaving. They're doing good. We get back in there, they're do bad. So she was bummed out. She's like, I'm the reason they lost. And I'm like, trust me, you're not the reason they lost.
No, but like even if she's not invested, the fact that she thinks like that,
Oh, dude.
she might not even know it, but she's a sports fan already. To be that
Yeah, no,
superstitious already, she's a sports fan.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
she might not know it yet,
Oh no,
but
I've talked to her. Like she's already said like she wants to go back. Like she had a good time. So
yeah,
I
no,
told her once I
isn't that
got her there in
awesome though?
person, it was different.
No, that's my wife has never been a football fan, and um, we went to the Rams and Colts game earlier this year, and like
That was
she
a
could
good
kind
game
of
too.
it was, bro. It was intense, and we were up there surrounded by a bunch of Colts fans. It was like
Yeah.
me and like one other dude were Rams fans in this whole section we were sitting in, and um, There was a moment in the game. It was like it was a big like third or fourth down stop the Rams had, and like she's not a football fanatic or anything, but she knows kind of like the
Right.
basics,
Yeah.
just from us being together for almost a decade now. And like the Rams got to stop, and I didn't even like she beat me jumping out the chair to stand up to start cheering, and I was like, yo, this is the hottest thing I've ever seen in my
I know,
life.
dude. It is. It is. Like me and her just
But
being
like,
like, she was like, you want to go back? You want to
yeah,
watch
like
the once the game?
that's
I'm
what
like, yeah, I do.
like yeah, like she had a blast, and it was so much fun. Like granted, we've only been in 3 games together. The first one, it was early on in our relationship when we were still dating. The Rams are still in St. Louis. We went and watched the Rams play the Giants. Odell Beckham's rookie year. OBJ caught like 2 touchdowns. The Rams got their ass kicked. That one wasn't an enjoyable space for anyone. The second game we watched together, it was in Tennessee after they moved to LA. It was the Rams actually clinched the NFC West title that day, but it was raining slash snowing, like
Oh.
30 something degrees,
Plus,
outdoor
Tennessee
game.
Stadium is like a high school stadium.
Yeah, yeah, and we were watching the game in like a glorified D3 football stadium. Um, but it was a great game though. Like I had a blast. I had a few drinks. I was feeling nice and warm, even though it was 30 degrees outside. The Rams clinched the NFC West. Gurley won me a fantasy championship. It was week 16. Like it was a great week for me. But she had just found out she was pregnant with our second kid. It was freezing cold, so there was no way for her to have fun that game. So this third game, the last game we went to together, we were in the beautiful dome. It was warm. The
I was just saying,
environment
like
was
that's the thing is
incredible.
even in the dead of winter, like if you go to a Colts game, like as long as they shut the roof,
Yeah,
which most when it's cold, like it's 70 degrees in there, it's comfortable. There's no
yeah,
elements,
it was
not a bad
wonderful.
seat,
So we were both
beautiful
in it.
seat.
She was fucking invested. We were in it. She was like she after we left that game, that was the first time I ever heard her say after a game, I had so much fun. And like she was like looking forward to go again. And she doesn't even like football. So like
Yeah,
it just look
it's an
like look,
experience,
if
dude.
you're out there and you're having trouble getting your girlfriend or your wife or whoever into football, if your team plays the Colts, just take them up there because the environment is incredible. The stadium is beautiful.
And you got a
And
good chance of winning the game. So that's always good too.
but something else really interesting came out of that game, and it didn't come out until
Well,
the next day. But
right. Well, something too, like so there was another point
okay,
I wanted to get to before we get to where you're going.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so what was funny, the other funny thing that happened, so outside of me being like one of the guys that had a Carson Wentz jersey on, and I'm walking out of the stadium surrounded by like fans, and like
people
I'm
were
just getting
throwing
like,
hot dogs at you,
yeah,
and
like I was just getting, like flipped off and stuff. Like I threw the interception. Um, so we're walking out, and I've heard the greatest sports analogy that I've ever heard, comparing two different players from two different sports. There was an old guy had on an old Peyton Manning jersey. We're walking out of Lucas Oil, and he's talking to his wife. He goes, "You know who he reminds me of?" He like talking about Carson Wentz. He's like, "You know who he reminds me of?" And she's like, "Who's that?" And he goes, "That damn Russell Westbrook." And I was like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, he does. Like he's so like he's such like the Westbrook, like he's the Westbrook of the NFL, where like he'll make plays that nobody else can like make. Like that throw to Michael Pittman in overtime,
mm-hmm.
like where he like used the like he's stumbling, he's running out of the pot. He uses the ball to get his balance and pops back up, throws it into quadruple coverage,
Makes
going
no
to his
sense.
right. Like there's like two quarterbacks in the NFL, like him and Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, like maybe. I don't even know if Mahomes can do it this year with the way he's looked. But like that's such a play. Like that is ridiculous. Like ridiculous. He makes that play. And then the next, like going like the next play, he throws it once a like, oh my God, he throws
A
the picks and he
terrible
does that. Yeah,
interception.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, just awful. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, he really is Russell Westbrook, where like he just makes he does something that hardly anybody else can do in the sport. Anybody at that position, like I said, there's maybe three guys in the league that can make that play, um, and he's one of them. And then he just like throws a fucking brick up, just just bricks it off the backboard. Like he loses the game. And I was saying, yeah, and I was saying, I was like, man, that's a great comparison. So yes, Carson, which makes it fun for fans to an extent. Yeah, like we lose the game, but like it really is like, especially seeing it in person, like it is, man. It's such a roller coaster watching Carson Wentz play. It's so because like he'll we get off to that hot start, and I'm just like, fuck yeah, like here we go. Like Wentz is coming out. He's making that second throw to Pittman in the end zone. The line was blocking. Like we had our offensive line healthy for the first time all year. They played great. Um, so when he's sitting there, he's going through his progressions. He's looking. He drifts a little to the right. Boom! Hits Pittman for the second touchdown. Like, I mean, walk it to him, Wentz. Like perfect. Like I mean, he couldn't have walked that ball over there. He perfect. And then he just like fell apart. Like it was like he threw that second touchdown. He was like, oh no, we're getting too far ahead.
We're on the week 9, baby.
Yeah. He just like they felt, and Frank, man, like it's so fucking frustrating watching this team. They're second in the NFL in turnover differential. Second, the defense has caused 8 turnovers, only behind the Buffalo Bills, who have 13. If you look at the list,
somebody needs to write an opinion article on why does Frank Reich hate Jonathan Taylor? What did Jonathan Taylor do to that man? Somebody needs to figure it out.
Some of it apparently was RPOs that like the read was supposed to go to Taylor, but Wentz, pulled it back.
But they got to figure that shit out then.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like so quit calling the fucking RPOs.
Yeah,
just
take out the middleman.
Hand it
Call
off.
A run and play.
This could be like the way that Tennessee uses Henry, which we'll get to here in a second. He shouldn't get that amount of carries because he is a running back, and I don't want him to go through that kind of punishment. I mean, yeah, like 28, 30 carries is a little insane, but there's no reason that dude should touch the ball less than 20 times. You should have a 20,
he should be
touch
minimum.
End.
Yeah.
20 touch minimum. And then depending on the game flow, like with that game, I guarantee you if Jonathan Taylor ran that ball 30 times in that game, like the way they ran Henry, I think Henry had 20.
That comeback carries. Probably doesn't happen.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I mean, the bottom line is that the running back is too talented and the offensive line is too talented to not run the ball more.
I think I know in the NFL, the quarterback is supposed to be the engine of the offense, but we see it in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's not always the case with every team.
Exactly.
It's just not.
I think he's trying to like look, like I said, I saw it in person. Wentz is great, and Wentz has been great this year.
He has. Yeah.
Wentz has been fantastic this year. That being said, I don't. If you let Carson Wentz throw the ball 51 times,
mistakes are gonna happen.
Shit like that's gonna happen. Like it's going to happen.
He's still not Aaron Rodgers. Like even as great as he's been playing, he's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not. I mean, he's not Tom Brady.
Yeah, like you should be looking at you should be looking at 35 passes, 40 at the tops. And then, that's another thing is like, even if you don't get Jonathan Taylor, 30 carries, which I don't want, get him 20 touches, you still have Nyheim Hines, who is a fantastic weapon, either out of the backfield or like he's really good at running. Like Nyheim Hines is a great runner.
Marlon Mack didn't get traded either. He's going to be on that team the rest of the year.
Marlon Mack's, that Achilles injury is really like he's lost 2 steps. Like he's not near as explosive as he was. And maybe it comes back next year, that might be like a 2-year type of a thing, but yeah, that Achilles injuries really took a toll on his explosiveness because he's, plays that I used to watch him, make one cut and up the field and he's exploding through the tackles and it turns into a 10-15 yard gain. It's going for like a 1 yard gain. Those exact same scenarios. But yeah, like, I know they just cut Jordan Wilkins, but Jordan Wilkins was another option. Like, even if you're not using Taylor to the extent of Henry, like we probably outside of maybe Cleveland have like the deepest running back room in the league. Like where we have like legit, like 4 to 5 dudes that like can get production. Like you can get production out of them. Yeah. Like we have that elite level guy in Taylor, but the other, like, 3 or 4 dudes behind him, like, they're not scrubs. Um, they're good players. So yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the RPO. I don't know if it's the game flow. Um, but yeah, it was disappointing to watch in person because it was, like I said, man, JT was just, he was eating them alive that game. Like every carry. I mean, it seemed like he was making one or two guys miss, and like he had carries where, like, there was guys in the backfield like almost instantly, and he just, cut, boom. Like I've been to a lot of Colts games, and I've not only Colts games, I've been to a lot of football games. And there's like one or two guys that, like, I can remember having that kind of explosiveness. Like, I mean, it was shocking to see in person. Like, it's noticeable in person. Like, you see it on TV a little, but it's different in person. Like, how quick that guy gets up the field. I mean, it's like he's like a fucking, like, Lamborghini mixed with like a Tesla. Like, it's 0 to 60 like instantly. Like, it's wild to see. So yeah, JT is awesome. Hopefully they, tomorrow night we're gonna find out if they learned their lesson or not. Which, granted, it's against the Jets, but
Well, then that should be another game where they should be in a positive game script. JT should garner
JT
a lot
should,
of touches,
yep,
and he better get them.
yep. JT should get a lot of touches. Hines should get more work. I mean, Mac should probably get 5 to 10 carries, possibly. I know they just called Deion Jackson up, who played really well in the preseason. I don't know what's going on with Jordan Wilkins, but yeah. And I don't want to turn this into a Colts podcast. We got plenty of other stuff. So,
A lot.
yeah, yes, sir, man, we got so much.
We still got more news to talk about from the same damn game.
Yeah. So in that game, obviously, like you were touching on, yeah, Derrick Henry, man, possibly out for the year. I know they're saying, was it 6 to 8 weeks is what they're saying, that he could possibly
On like the
return
front end,
on the
yeah, like
playoffs.
best case
But
scenario.
everything
Yeah.
I've read on that injury, from some of the medical, like the doctors, that cover football, some of the articles say that if you do bring them back on the upper end of that injury, the 6 to 8, especially like, 6 to 8 weeks, where they're talking about Henry possibly being available, that injury has a very high risk of re-injury.
Yeah. I
It's
would be shocked if this wasn't a season long, including playoffs type
and
of
I think,
injury.
yeah, and I think with his workload too, um, I think it probably needs to be. I think you need to give that guy plenty of rest, because
Right.
as big as he is, anytime somebody that size has a foot injury,
No bueno.
yeah, I don't like it. So with that, that was pretty much the only scenario that I could envision for the Colts possibly having life, because now we get to play the Jets and the Jaguars the next 2 weeks. Um, Tennessee gets you guys on Sunday Night Football this week, so I fully expect, being Rams fan Sunday night, if the Colts lose this game, I'm out on the season.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I probably don't watch another Colts game this year. Um, but in a game we should win, I'm assuming we do. Um, I'll be a Rams fan Sunday night, and we could get another game back. And then next week, I fully expect us to beat the Jaguars, and have possibly another game to make up on them. So yeah, this is the only scenario I could see where the Colts might actually have life to get back in the divisional hunt, and back into the playoffs, because they've done everything in their power to, basically shoot themselves in the foot, or ankles, or knees, or any other injury that could happen. But yeah, it was literally, like, well, Derrick Henry's got to get hurt and miss the whole season, and
And it
that's what
happened.
happened. Yeah, and so this instantly for me, not even using the Colts aspect of it, like, how do you think this affects Tennessee, like, as a team?
I mean, they were starting to really rise for me in terms of considering them as a legit Super Bowl contender before this news came out. I mean, they beat the Bills, they beat the Chiefs, they swept the Colts. Like, you got to, like, I picked them to win the division before the season, but even I was kind of skeptical once I saw how Ryan Tannehill came out and started playing. But for whatever reason, they were coming out, they were getting it done, they were winning games, and I was like, wow, okay, this team might be for real. And then now, whenever this happens, I mean, this is the engine that this team runs on. Um, Now, great, they brought in Adrian Peterson, which is more news that we can just kind of tie into this. That I would imagine Adrian Peterson will get a decent amount of work mixed in with McNichols, who will get some pass catching work as well, and probably more than just pass catching while AP gets acclimated into the offense. But there is no replacing Derrick Henry. Like, it doesn't matter who you bring in, doesn't matter who you sign. You do not replicate what Derrick Henry brings you. AP looked decent last year for Detroit, but he's not going to bring the explosiveness to the offense that Derrick Henry brings you. He's not going to break off those huge runs. He's a solid goal
Yeah.
line back. He's
Yeah.
he's good
He can
to
move the chains,
yeah,
get you
he
4
can get you those
yards.
3-4 yards at a
Yeah.
time. He's still he look the dude's not human. I mean, for us to even be saying that about him at like what 36, 37 years old
Yeah.
now,
Yeah, he'll be
like
37.
yeah, that doesn't make sense in itself. But so that's no slight to AP, but there's just that Ryan Tannehill's going to have to step up. AJ Brown looks like he's back from like the injuries and stuff that was holding him back early in the year. Like, he looks like he is back to being his normal dominant self. So that's a positive for Tennessee. Um, and so you got to hope Julio gets healthy, because he was obviously a big part of the plan for this year coming into the season. And the injuries just continue to mount up, and it sucks. It sucks to see, especially I'm a huge Julio fan, so it sucks. But he's got to get right, because Tannehill is going to have to carry a
Carry.
lot
Yeah.
more of the load on a week-to-week basis that he hasn't had to, because AP and Jeremy McNichols are not going to be able to fill Derrick Henry's shoes.
Well,
So
here's like the thing that I look at too to be like the most underrated thing is like I think Adrian Peterson will be serviceable. I don't think he's going to be bad for that team. I don't necessarily think McNichols is going to be bad either. They'll still be able to run the ball a little bit.
yeah, they'll be fine.
Um, this is going to be the issue for me with them going forward is not only what Derrick Henry brings to you as a rusher, what Derrick Henry does for the passing game is what worries me because now like teams are not you're not going to get the loaded boxes where like teams bite on play action every single time. Like that's gone. That's gone. And as we've seen this year, when Ryan Tannehill is forced to throw, he's made a lot of mistakes this year. I mean, I think he had 2 interceptions in the Colts game, even just this last weekend.
He
One or
hasn't looked like
two,
the
I can't
same
remember.
Tannehill over the last couple of
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
He
he
just had
hasn't.
he looked really good the 2 years prior, and this year, for the majority up to this point of the season, he has not looked like the same guy.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, like they basically, they won on the arm of Tannehill against the Colts. I mean, they won that
Yeah,
game,
yeah, that was
but
probably his best game of the year.
a lot of that, like I said, seeing it in person, a lot of that is the way that the defense plays Derrick Henry. It
Right.
caused a lot of those, open crossers over the middle to AJ Brown. And, some of those other plays that happened there. Um, the goal line, especially like on the first touchdown, they threw to the tight end there. Um, I think it was Michael Pruitt who caught it, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, but yeah, like the whole defense was playing run on that game or on that play, and they basically let the tight end just slip in right behind them. It was an easy dump off pass, nobody within 5 yards of him, because of Derrick Henry. Um, and and so I'm interested to see now that teams aren't going to bite on the play action like they were.
Not
Um,
as much. I will say, even offenses with bad running backs, play
yeah,
action
yeah, I
still
would say,
works,
yeah,
but it's
not
certainly
to
not
the
going to be
not to the
near as
degree.
effective.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
not to the degree that it has been over the last 2 or 3 years with Tannehill.
Right.
And he's made a lot of his money too on those rollouts. You know, where teams are biting on the running back on the play fakes with Henry, and then he's either rolling out and throwing to those crossers or even taking it himself. I think a lot of those teams are going to stop biting on look, if you want to hand off to a 37-year-old running back, to beat us, you go right ahead.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
kind of,
teams are going to go from asking them to beat them by throwing the ball to asking them to beat them by running the ball.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's going to
yeah.
go
So
from we
this
got to shut down
clearly,
Derrick Henry to we just got
I
to shut
think,
down AJ Brown.
yeah, and I think the Titans, which we'll get into this whenever we do our rankings, which we probably need to get to here in just a minute, but I think this clearly takes the Titans out of that Super Bowl caliber window that they had coming into this year.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
agree.
here's the thing too is, with that with that trade they made for Julio, they were basically going all in this year, and that's
Yeah,
because Julio wants a payday. Um, and look, he's hurt, but somebody's going to give it to him. So uh, it's going to be, and they've missed on a lot of draft picks recently too. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. But also, some of the news we got going on here: we have Aaron Rodgers testing positive for COVID, and there's been a
so
lot of
he's
talk.
out at least this week,
Yeah, should be
possibly
10.
next
Yeah,
week
yeah, should be
because
10,
he's
10
not
days.
technically vaccinated.
Yeah, even though he said technically he said he was, I don't know what the proper term that he used um was, but he made it seem like he's vaccinated. And
Apparently
he
he had like some like home remedy, like rub some oils together type of thing
Shailene
to
Woodley
to
shit.
get
Yeah.
some to like raise his antibodies, and he presented it to the NFL to try to get him labeled as vaccinated, and they were like, nah, no, that ain't it, chief. And so
Yeah.
he's considered a non-vaccinated COVID positive. So
Immunized. That's
that
how he said it.
that's what he called it. Yeah, he said that he was
Immunized.
immunized in that press conference. Yeah.
Which I mean could mean that he already had COVID previously and he just has the antibodies, but that's not the letter of the law. And apparently, too, like this could really like go downhill for them, because he's been doing press conferences and walking around all year without a mask on. As we know, per the NFL rules, if you are
Oh,
unvaccinated,
I
you
hadn't
are
even thought about that.
required to wear masks. And because I know Carson Wentz pretty much every time they're indoors. Now, I think the outdoor rules, as long as they're a certain distance away, you don't have to
Mhm.
wear a mask for outdoor press conferences. But I think indoors, you are always required to wear a mask indoors, and that has not been happening in Green Bay. So it will be interesting to see how the NFL. I know the NFL is announced this afternoon slash tonight sometime that they are going to be looking into possible COVID violation for the Green Bay Packers. With that, which could end up with a suspension as well for Aaron Rodgers, which um, like I said, we don't get into the vaccinated, unvaccinated talk. It's not what we do here. Personally, I think the
No,
rules
the
are a
bottom
little
line is,
Arcadian.
yeah,
But
the bottom line is, regardless of how you feel about the rules, the NFL has
they
been
are
very
the
clear about
rules.
them. They've
Yeah.
laid them out very clearly. They're, not really anything to be confused about. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But um, as long the Packers appear to be in the driver's seat of the NFC North, so I don't think this one game will derail them too much. Um, and with how bad Kansas City's defense has been, even with the Melvin Ingram acquisition, who knows? The Packers might even still pull this game out against Kansas City this week,
Yeah,
even
because
without Aaron
I
Rodgers.
don't know if you watched the Giants game this last Monday, but
Right? Yeah, they barely squeaked one out
whew,
against the Giants. So,
the Giants
uh,
lost that game more than Kansas City won that game.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah. Whew,
I don't
man.
expect this to, as long as all this mess can get cleared up over the next few weeks and the Packers can get prepared for the playoffs. I really don't think this is too big of a deal, to
No,
be
there's still
honest.
plenty of time for them. Like I said, it will be interesting
Yeah.
to see um, just how this affects, as far as like the vaccinations and if there's any type of suspensions levied or anything like that. But even then, I fully anticipate Rodgers being back. The Green Bay Packers will be fine. And the good news is, look, you drafted a quarterback in the first round.
Who
So
they said they believed was
yeah,
just as good as Patrick Mahomes.
yeah.
So,
So yeah, here's your chance.
he gets to go
Jordan,
up against
yeah,
Mahomes.
here you go, Jordan Love. Which right now I don't know if you would want to say you're as good as Patrick Mahomes this year. Um, So yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. And then the other big news, I'll let you announce the big Rams news for the
Are
week
we
this
getting to
week.
this one?
Yeah, I mean, because look, I mean, we had we hit the Henry Ruggs news, we hit the Rodgers COVID news, hit the Colts game, and I went on my big rant about
So
that.
one
We
other
haven't
thing
hit
before
Odell yet.
I was about to say that was the one thing I wanted to get your opinion on before we moved on
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
big
we have not
positive
hit on
here,
Odell yet.
other than the COVID positive. Ayo. But yeah, so the other news before we get on to Von Miller is Odell Beckham Jr. being sent home by the Cleveland Browns today. Was there at the facility ready to practice, and the team told him to go home.
And apparently they announced to the team earlier today that he will
He's
no
essentially
longer,
just not a part of the
yeah,
team.
like that he will no longer be a member of the team this season. Now
Oh,
what
they
that
said
could,
this season?
yeah, they said this season. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Why would you not have
I could find
traded
the
him yet
exact I could
on the
find the exact
deadline?
thing that was said here. Let me pull it. Yeah, well, I think there's a few things with the deadline. One, that I don't think teams were willing to take on that kind of a contract that he has. Um I don't know if teams are willing to take it on, especially with his play recently over the last couple years. Uh so I think that could possibly be an issue. Plus, we all know anytime you have a receiver, even if they're not as productive, if they are as talented or have shown in the past to be as talented as Odell, you could possibly even look at the Browns asking way too much for a player and not necessarily knowing that this was the route it was going to take. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out for sure. Yes. So Kevin Stefanski has told the Browns this morning in a team meeting that Odell Beckham Jr. will not be with the team for the rest of the season. So I would
They
honestly,
they got to cut him, man.
yeah, that's what I would expect. I mean, like I said, we'll see um, if they are going to cut him, and hopefully, you know, now with the new waiver rules, every player that's cut,
Yeah, he's gonna
regardless
have
of
to go
veteran
through
status,
waivers,
he'll go through
right?
waivers. And if some team claims him,
They take on that
they take
contract,
on the salary, which will be good for the Browns. If not,
right?
the
Which
Browns
I
will
don't think anybody
basically,
would do.
yeah, the Browns will basically be paying Odell to go to a
Play for
contender.
somebody else.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to
So
see
I
how the Browns handle this if they kind of do a Deshaun Watson thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, apparently, like his dad posted videos of
that's what kicked the whole
Baker.
thing off, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So I've got some thoughts on this. And now I will start this off saying I am an Odell Beckham fan. I've said earlier, um, I was at one of his rookie year games where he had an incredible rookie season whenever he came off injury. Whenever they came to St. Louis and played, he scored like 2 touchdowns that game. Watching that in person, watching him slice and dice that secondary, I kind of just automatically became a fan. Um, I think this is kind of shit for a couple reasons. One, now, I guess you can go the conspiracy theory route and say that, like, Odell chopped up the video and sent it to his dad and said, "Hey, I can't post this, but you can," but assume what you want. You can't punish Odell for something that his dad put on the internet. Like that's not on him. And like a fatherly instinct, watching your son get bashed on a weekly basis for quote unquote not playing well and stuff like that. And then there's all this tape that backs up the fact that your son is just being clearly underutilized. Like if you haven't watched the video, it might not have been right for him to post it, but there are plenty of very nicely run routes that aren't being targeted on or being, the just whatever the case may be. I think Odell still has plenty left in the tank is what I'm saying. And I don't necessarily think it's all on Baker either. Like whenever Kevin Stefanski was the offensive coordinator for the Vikings, Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, their receptions, their targets went down. It's just kind of the nature of the offense. It's really essentially
well,
what I'm
that
saying is it's really stupid that the two players that have the biggest cap hit on the Cleveland Browns with the way they operate are Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, because that's just not how a Kevin Stefanski offense is run. And granted, some of that is just what he inherited whenever he took the job. Um,
Odell Beckham would love Frank Reich.
but yeah, he would be getting plenty of targets in that offense. Um, but so I don't necessarily think it's all on Baker either. I think it's just the offense that the team is in. But I do think he is being underutilized, and I will say for the drama, the dramatic guy that Odell has been made out to be, he has since his arrival at Cleveland, he has been relatively quiet and has just kind of been, just gone about his business, even though he has been underutilized and he's been heavily criticized for his lack of production. I haven't heard much from Odell himself. And so it just kind of sucks to see this playing out the way that it has. From his perspective, I would like to see him go somewhere where he can be featured, and a team that does, they're more pass centric than run centric, because I do think while he might not be the Odell Beckham that was in New York, pre-injuries and things like that, I do still think he could be a very productive receiver in this league, and that he still has plenty left to offer if used correctly. So I would just cut him, Cleveland. Just cut him. Let him get a fresh start. Clearly, well, for whatever reason, him and Baker don't work. That's evident at this point. I think both parties just need a fresh start, and see where it goes from there, because this ain't it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as big of an Odell guy. I do think there might be some behind the scenes things that we don't know about.
I think there always is with any situation.
Especially in situations like this. I've always been I've always had a big issue with his body language, and the way he kind of conducts himself whenever he's not targeted. He's kind of either sulked at the end of the bench or thrown kicking nets or you know,
Yeah,
who
see, like
knows.
you've got the big kicking net incident and stuff like that, and I don't get bothered
I
by
mean,
stuff like that. All what I see is a guy that is passionate and cares,
yeah,
and
but at what
that's
point
not
is
a
it?
negative
Yeah,
to me.
well, yeah, I'm not necessarily saying like stuff like that's a negative, but like at what point is it detrimental to like, they clearly want to run a certain type of offense
Hmm.
to win games, and if you're going to sulk and you know act like that towards the offense, then like at some point like winning games should matter more than stats. Like I don't like
They're not doing much of that either, though.
yeah, well, see, that's the big issue is losing always accentuates a lot of the behind the scene problem. If they were winning games right now, this probably wouldn't be an issue. But
I
yeah,
think that might be part of what it is, and I like I said, I think he's been relatively quiet for the most part, which is
yeah, I don't think he's been as vocal like out in the media and
right.
with
Like
the antics and stuff that he did in
he's
New
been
York.
labeled as one of those guys, and I don't think that's been the case. But like
But see,
like
that's the
to
thing
his
with being labeled like that is because like whenever he acted the way he did in New York, that's what gets you labeled. Like you don't just get that reputation for no reason. Like there's clearly some things that he did in New York, which I'm sure he would do differently now.
that I
But
think he grew from.
yeah, exactly. But in the eyes of the media and the fan base, once you're
Yeah, it's
that
hard to
guy,
shake that.
yeah, you're that guy. Regardless of how much you grow and stuff like that. So it's hard to, they always say like, how the first impression is the most important.
Mm.
It really is because now like, he has that label to where now we assume like, especially like with me, where I assume that, with seeing his body language on the field, and I've seen plenty of times where like he hasn't been targeted, whether they go in a different route, he's, back there just going like slamming his hands down and, just stuff like that, that maybe the cameras don't always catch, just little idiosyncrasies like that. And I mean, it is, a lot of it's just frustration and passion, and he wants to be, I mean, when you're a football player, especially when you're that caliber of a football player that he has been, um, you want to be productive and you want to be the reason why you help your team win games. And I don't, like you said, I don't necessarily see that as a flaw like most people. Um, but anytime there's something like this, whether it's the losing, whether it's the Baker thing, um, there's a lot of factors about it that we obviously aren't privy to. And
Right.
I doubt we ever will be privy to, unless he comes
Somebody
out with like
snitches.
yeah, exactly. Unless he comes out with a memoir or something like that, we'll find out eventually. Um, but yeah, that's is what it is. I do agree. I think they should just cut him. But then again, like I said, it's hard to be paying somebody to go produce on another team. If if you're the Browns, especially too, considering they still have aspirations. They're only a game or two out of the wild card race and stuff like that. So I mean, they still have aspirations. They could still view him as we cut him. Say he goes. Say we cut him. I'm just thinking of teams that have the 8 million that they can absorb without making any moves. New England, I believe, can do it. Which I mean, teams can make it work if they restructure deals. But the
Always.
Chargers, yeah, like the Chargers have it available readily. Like, say he gets cut and goes to an AFC rival that they're trying to make ground on, and in the
What
wild
if
card
Kansas City
race.
makes it work and he's like the missing piece to that passing
Yeah,
offense?
exactly. Like, you don't want to be the reason why
Another team leapfrogs you.
another. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I know personally, for me, from like, if I was a GM, that would be the main thing for me, is like, we're gonna have to pay him regardless. Um, unless a team claims him, which I doubt teams will generally put a claim in. Uh, so yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to pay him regardless. So I would rather pay him to not bite us in the ass.
Right.
Yeah, like, you just you set at home this year, collect your checks, do whatever you want to do, stay in game shape. I know it sucks, but we just can't take that risk. And then next year we will move you in this off season. You promise to, like, we'll do what's right for you in the off season. Right now we have to do what's right for us in the season. And that's just kind of how I view it.
Yeah, that would suck. That's how it plays out. But the NFL's a business, and if that's the decision they make, then that's the decision they make.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Which, I mean, if you're already sending the guy home, you know, for the year at that point, I mean, you clearly think you can win without him. But like I said,
and they had a very productive year without him.
yeah, which is weird too. Like, Baker's one of those, like, it's weird. Like, Baker splits without Odell. Like, he's borderline elite without Odell on the field, which makes no sense.
No,
Um,
no, it doesn't. But
because I think maybe, like, he works more in the structure of the offense instead of actually trying to, like, force certain reads to Odell to
yeah, I
keep
mean,
him
like
happy.
if you said, hey, what offense should in today's NFL with the way that these different offenses operate, what offense would you guess has the two wide receivers or the take up the two biggest cap hits on the offense? Like the Browns are going to be at the bottom of that list if you would just be guessing from just based on how they operate the team. Like that's just not how that team operates.
Right.
And so I believe both of those contracts were inherited by Stefanski whenever he took the job. Like I'm pretty sure Landry and OBJ were both already
Yes.
there. So
Yes.
it's not like that was necessarily a part of
Well,
Stefanski's plan.
yeah, I'm pretty sure Odell's was inherited whenever he was traded from the Giants. Like, they took on
Yeah,
that
right.
contract from
But
the
like that
Giants.
trade happened before Stefanski came, right?
And say, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, that
So
happened before.
yeah,
The
so
same thing with Landry. I believe his came from the Dolphins.
right. So like
Um,
those contracts weren't exactly a part of the current regime's plan. And
they
it's
value
pretty just
blocking way more than pass catching at the wide
yeah,
receiver.
they run. I'm pretty sure they run three tight ends more than any team in the league, and that doesn't make if you're if the two biggest cap hits on your offensive receiver, that sounds weird. But it's just the nature of the team. So it's pretty clear that though that OBJ is not a part of the plan there, and I just hope that gets corrected sooner rather than later, so that he can showcase that you know, he's not done. So that's just that's kind of how I feel about it. I would like to see a fresh start for both parties.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. Although, like I said, just from like a team perspective, like, I wouldn't want to let Odell go to Kansas City or the Chargers or somewhere like that, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
be the reason they finally, they're like, we're not able to get into the playoffs because those teams
Get
aren't able to
hot.
win games. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So now we will segue into our big news for the Rams, and I will let you go ahead and gloat just a little bit more. At least one of us has a winning team on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, depending on who you listen to, apparently I shouldn't have a reason to gloat. But to those that think that I do not have a reason to gloat, I say I do not care how you feel. But
We're talking
you
about
know,
PFF.
yeah, mostly. And one like washed up GM on ESPN that's been fired as a GM like 2 different times and still sits on ESPN. I can't remember the guy's name. He was a
Tannenbaum.
yeah, Tannenbaum.
I
He
knew
was
it.
another
Yep.
guy. Yeah,
I knew
he
instantly.
he was another guy that was sitting on ESPN the day the trade happened and was talking about all the reasons that it was terrible. And I
Yeah, the
was like,
guy
I
who
mean,
traded up to draft Mark Sanchez.
yeah. I might have never been a GM, but you've been canned as a GM multiple times. So if you don't like the trade, I like it even more. But so, the 7-1 Los Angeles Rams traded for Von Miller at the trade deadline. It was your typical trade deadline ever since McVay took over as head coach and teamed up with Les Snead as, with the Rams GM. The Rams made a splash and everything else was just kind of whatever. And so prior to this trade, the Los Angeles Rams as a team were already first in the league in pressures with 172 and also first in the league with team sacks with 30 sacks. And then they traded for 8-time Pro Bowler Von Miller. And not only will Von Miller help out with the pass, Von Miller is also an upgrade in the run defense. He's the only player on the Rams or the Broncos, either team that he just departed from with a negative average depth of tackle, had a negative 0.20 average depth of tackle in run defense. So this Rams defense, one area they have struggled in is against the run. This has been an average run defense, and now you bring in a guy who not only is one of the best pass rushers that the NFL has seen, he also can stop the run. And so, just to kind of further get into that, you think about, whenever you think about the Rams defense, you think about Aaron Donald and you think about Jalen Ramsey, but Leonard Floyd, who they paid big money this past offseason, is also enjoying a career year. Up to this point in the year, the pressures accumulated this season. Aaron Donald is at 38 pressures. Leonard Floyd is at 32. Von Miller is at 28. So Leonard Floyd actually has more pressures on the year than Von Miller. Now, Leonard Floyd has also played more snaps. For the pressure percentages, AD is at 12.7. Leonard Floyd is at 13.8. And Von Miller is up at 15.8. Von Miller did miss their week 8 game due to an ankle injury, but he is expected to be fine. And with things going on behind the scenes, I'm not so sure that was more of an ankle injury more than just like we expect you might be traded, so we're going to keep you healthy type injury. I don't know either way, but point being, prior to Von Miller missing that week 8 game, he was like top 5 or 6 in the league in pressures on the year. So he's not, people made this big deal about you traded a 32, you traded 2 premium picks for a 32-year-old pass rusher. I don't know how many trades like this the Rams have to make that pay off before people stop caring so much about these early picks that they're trading off. Like, do you think that they regret trading those 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey with how great Jalen Ramsey has been now? Do you think they care about those 2 first-round picks and third-round pick they traded off for Matthew Stafford with the clear upgrade he's been to Jared Goff now? Do you really think that they're going to care about that second and third-round pick that they gave up for Von Miller whenever he's going to come in and get to look? Von Miller is a guy who's similar to Aaron Donald, is used to being double teamed and triple teamed on all the teams. And now you've got Von Miller, Aaron Donald, and Leonard Floyd on the same pass rush. And teams are going to figure out who you want to double, who you want to triple, whatever. And there's going to be guys that are going to be running free on this line. Somebody's going to be making some noise. And that is something that Von Miller has never gotten to experience, as something that Aaron Donald has never gotten to experience. And on top of that, the Rams, if Von Miller, like Les Snead, the Rams GM, also said that Von Miller is a part of their long-term plans as well. Like, they hope to extend him this offseason, but if they don't, he goes elsewhere. They're going to get a 5th-round comp pick for that. Like, the 5th is the max you can get for a player his age. They're not going to get like a 3rd-round comp pick or anything like that. But so essentially the trade will end up being a 2nd and a 3rd for Von Miller and a 5th. I'm fine with that all day. And on top of that, the Rams continue until Les Snead starts missing in the middle rounds of drafts. then I'll start caring about not having early picks. But he keeps drafting guys like Cooper Kupp and John Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day. And like every year, the Rams max out on comp picks because guys that they're drafting in the middle rounds go and sign for, mid-tier or high-tier contracts, and they get
Yeah.
comp picks back. Like
So they
there's
they
all this noise made about the picks we don't have, and yet we've still got like 7 draft picks next year
I was
from
gonna
all
say
the
they should
comp
say they
picks.
should get some for like John Johnson and like all those
Yeah,
type
they're
of
going to get
guys.
one for John Johnson. They're going to get one for Brad Holmes, going to be the GM of the Detroit Lions. They're going to get a third round comp pick for that. Like we still have a third round comp pick coming in, even despite trading a third round pick for Von Miller. Like everybody's
And this
worried
is
about all these high value draft picks and stuff. Look, if
this
you
is
don't
one
hit
thing
on the
that,
mid round draft picks, it's a problem.
and here's the thing too.
But
This is what I don't understand too. Like, to your point, um, do you think any GM in football right now would trade an entire draft to win a Super Bowl this year?
I
hundred
know if I was
percent,
a GM, I wouldn't heartbeat. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Because that's what it's about. It's not about how many picks you can get. It's not about how many players you can draft. I mean, yeah, like that helps lay a foundation for sustained success. But at the end of the day, once you have that foundation, you really think a second, third round rookie is going to come in and give you the same type of impact that a guy like Von Miller can? Um, because right now, Tutu Atwell's not looking too hot. And,
On for the year.
yeah, second round pick. So would you rather have Tutu Atwell next year or would you rather have Von Miller? Um,
So
now,
the Rams drafted first overall. They grabbed Jared Goff,
yeah,
first overall pick in
exactly.
the draft,
Yeah,
and said, "Yo, we're never doing that shit again."
yeah, exactly. They've seen their drafting, over the last couple of years, and they're just like, you know what, like we're just
Like,
gonna
I
go get
mean,
a bunch of
granted,
Pro Bowlers.
without a first round pick, they wouldn't have had Aaron Donald because they did draft Aaron Donald the same year they drafted Greg Robinson, number 2 overall, who was a complete bust. Like I mean, the NFL draft is just so
It's such a
like
crapshoot, and I don't
it's
know why
so
more
crazy,
teams
man.
don't do this. This doesn't, like, for example, like with mine, like, um, that is one of my big hangups with Chris Ballard is that he's constantly preached, like, we want to build through the draft. We want to build through the draft. Well, look, dude, we're in year 5, and like, yeah, I know Luck retired 2 weeks before the season, like, but like we're going into
Right.
year 3 without Luck. And
Matt
you've missed.
Stafford was on Zillow looking at homes in Indy, thought he was going to Indy, and,
I
and
know,
Ballard
and
did not want to be aggressive enough to grab him.
yeah, which I mean, like Wentz has played fine. I'm perfectly happy
Oh
with
yeah, yeah.
Wentz.
Wentz has been good.
But yeah,
That's
you
just
already
to your
you
point.
yeah you already know like my feelings on Stafford.
Right.
But I mean, but yeah, I mean, I know there was a lot of rumors coming out. There was, the trade deadline where the Colts were in discussions with Miami for Devontae Parker for a 5th round pick, and they just couldn't agree with, they couldn't agree on, I guess, compensation or something like that. So I mean, I don't know why teams don't do this more because now, like with the Colts, like yeah, the foundation has been laid. They went trade a first rounder for DeForest Buckner. Now they've traded a first rounder for Carson Wentz. So I mean, I can't say that they don't do this, but I think teams get the mistake. I think teams value draft picks just way too high. And I know you can get, if you hit on a good rookie, it's awesome because you have an impact player under contract on cheap money for a prolonged period of time. But if it's like Andrew was saying, like it's just a crapshoot. So I mean, yeah, if you don't like a, if you don't hit on that player, then why are you holding on to so many draft? Like, I don't understand why teams value draft picks just like they're gold. Because I mean, yeah, the allure of drafting 2 all pros in a draft and having them on rookie contracts for 4 to 5 years. I mean, yeah, like it's alluring. Like you want to be able to show like I can draft these guys. I don't have to sign them. We can get this production for cheap. But at the end of the day, for every Quentin Nelson you draft, every Darius Leonard you draft, every Julian Blackman you draft, you're going to draft Ben Banagoo. You're going to draft Paris Campbell. You're going to draft Tutu Atwell.
Greg Robinson,
Yeah, Greg Rod. Like, yeah, I mean, it's
number
just a
2 overall
crapshoot.
pick.
Yeah, so I mean, you're basically just a crapshoot. And if you hit, it's all good. But if not, like I said, we're in year 5 of, and like I made the point while you were gone. I think, like Ballard has, he laid the foundation with some of these picks,
He's made plenty of really good
yeah,
picks.
yeah. I mean, he's a fantastic drafter. But at the same time, he's missed on a lot of picks too, like our pass rushing picks basically. Now jury's still out on Quiddy Page, jury's still out on Dio Odengbo, who looked really good in his first game back from an Achilles tear. Uh, but we'll see if those two pan out. But the previous ones, Ben Bandigu, Taekwon Lewis, Kamoko Toure, numerous second round picks spent on pass rushers that the Colts have the worst pass rush in the league. Do you not think? They did trade a first for DeForest Buckner, who's just getting.
That's been a great deal for you guys, but that's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
another point to the, you know,
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is our two most important players outside of Darius Leonard on the team right now, Carson Wentz and DeForest Buckner.
right?
Both were traded basically. We'll see. I fully expect Wentz to be a top, to be a first rounder next year. Both were traded for first round picks. And I don't think there's anybody you could draft, especially with this quarterback draft coming up. If you needed a quarterback that is,
Yeah, the class doesn't look good.
yeah, outside of Malik Wills and maybe just a couple more, I mean, it's not good. So I mean, I'm perfectly happy giving up a first rounder for Carson Wentz if this is, as long as he doesn't keep doing the same stupid shit. But
But
that's who he is.
the point is though, I mean, you're trading draft picks which are essentially unknowns. Like you don't
Or
know
ain't
what you're
known.
gonna get for a player that has already proven at the NFL level. Like Jalen Ramsey has
Super Bowl
proven.
MVP. Y'all remember watching Von? Now I will say the
Right.
biggest thing with Von Miller, my only issue with this, and it's not even like an issue with the trade. I'm still further fine with the trade. Um, is he has had a lot of health issues over the last few years.
Hmm.
The dude can't stay on the field. But as we do on this podcast with our fantasy picks, you never plan for injury. You get these
No.
guys thinking you're going to get them healthy. And I know he's getting healthy. He's possibly has a chance to even practice this week. And
Yeah,
kind of,
they're thinking he might possibly be able to play Sunday night. Now,
yeah,
even
exactly.
if they hold him out, I honestly don't even think it would be for injury. I would think it would just be to get him comfortable and
Right.
accumulated to the offense. But I mean, look, Brandon Staley was a product. He came from the Vic Fangio defense, and Raheem Morris, who is now the defensive coordinator that took over for Brandon Staley, he kept a lot of the same concepts. So I don't think Von Miller, with his familiarity with the scheme and with just his level of expertise and his level of professionalism, I don't think he's going to take a lot of time to get accumulated to the offense.
No. And at the end
And
of
the
the
guy
day,
knows what he's there for.
right,
He
exactly.
knows his
And
job.
I was gonna say, and at the end of the day, football is football. You can,
The
the
dude's a
play
football
calls
player, man.
and all that stuff. At the end of the day, it's go get the quarterback. Like
Yeah.
that's all you need to know. Like, yeah, like the little nuances, like gap schemes and stuff like that. Like they'll
The
play a
dude's a
role.
seasoned vet. He'll
Uh,
figure it out.
oh yeah, here in a week or two, it's not even gonna
And
matter.
look,
He'll be
something to keep in
fine
mind
under
with his
four.
teammate, like Stafford is still figuring it out. Like there's still plenty of players on this offense and defense that are just figuring it out, man. And that's what I'm most excited about is this team they're 7-1. They're looking really good and they're still trying to figure things out themselves. So I think that kind of can transition us into us figuring out where these teams fit in. So anything else you want to get
Agreed.
into before we start to?
No, I think that pretty much touches on all 5,000 things that happened over the
That
last
was 1 week's worth
4 days.
of information.
Not
What
even
the
a full
hell,
week.
man?
That's not even a full week.
It's like a few days.
Yeah, that's literally like since Sunday. It is Wednesday. It's 3 days.
And I mean, if you haven't heard Daniel Hunter for the Vikings, he's out for the year. Minnesota Vikings. This is like 2 years they had to play without him. Melvin Ingram got traded to the Chiefs. Look, the Chiefs can take anything they can get to make that defense better is an improvement. So even with Melvin Ingram at the point in his career he is, the Chiefs defense got a little bit better. So a couple other things that happened as well. But the main things we talked about. So now let's talk about where these teams are sitting, about halfway through the year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And we're gonna do this
tier.
together. I'm pretty excited to just kind of see how we end up stacking up similar. So
We and just, disclaimer, we did not discuss this prior. Like, we did not
no,
discuss where we're going to put what team. This is just completely on the fly.
well,
We're
this
going to
is why it's
figure
called
out.
off the cuff, is
Right.
because we're gonna go through this together. And so as you can see here, we do have 6 tiers. We have our Super Bowl contenders. We have teams that we think can make deep playoff runs, possibly even win the Super Bowl, but aren't, clear elite teams. We have the pretenders for the playoffs, as far as teams that will probably make the playoffs, but are more than likely first round exits. We have our average teams who may or may not make the playoffs. We have our below average teams, which everybody knows what below average means. And we have our bottom feeders, which is the worst of the worst, which is where we want to start because we don't like talking about bottom feeders because they don't matter.
Let's get them out of the way. Let's just knock
Yeah,
these
yeah.
guys out.
We'll
So I'm
talk.
going to
We'll
grab the
talk
obvious one.
plenty. Yeah, we'll talk plenty about these guys during draft season.
Right. Yeah, they'll get their time to shine, in a few months. So you got the Houston Texans, clear bottom feeders there.
Yes.
New York Jets, any argument for me to put them here?
I don't know if
I
they're
know they
quite as bad. I think they might be more of a below average team. I don't think they're bottom feeders. I don't think they're as bad as the Lions or maybe even the Eagles, or the Jaguars, for example.
Okay, I'm with you on the
But yeah,
Lions. I'm with you on the Jags. So I'll put them here. All right, so those are some bottom feeders.
I wouldn't argue if you did want to put the Jets in there.
I want to put look, the
Okay.
2 wins they've had are impressive. I get like
Yeah,
they've beat
exactly.
the.
Like they're a team that like any given week they can beat anybody. Those 3 teams on the bottom, they're not winning. No, like they're not they're not beating. Which is the NFL. I mean, any given week anybody can beat anybody. But the Jets have shown. I mean,
Man, I mean, like
like
they got beat
the
by the
Titans and the
Panthers.
Bengals. I mean,
They got beat by
that
the
was an
Panthers. They got shut out by the Broncos.
yeah,
Like,
like big Mike White.
they
I
got beat
mean,
by the Falcons. Like, I
my
don't think
my
it's I don't
W
think it
my
I don't
WKU boy coming through.
I don't think it says much about your franchise either whenever your backup quarterback coming out of nowhere that's on like his second, third NFL team already is playing better than your franchise quarterback you drafted #2 overall. Like, they
Yeah,
feel
I
like a
like I
bottom
said,
feeder
like I
to
said,
me.
I'm not going to argue if you want to throw the Jets in there.
All right, I'm throwing them in
Yeah,
there because they
yeah,
suck.
yeah. To quote the movie Big Daddy, the goddamn Jets.
The goddamn Jets. That's right.
Uh,
Um,
so, is there
so
any other team that you would consider bottom feeders? Just the worst of the
um,
worst.
let's see.
I think there's an argument for the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna put them in there, I mean, they're sitting above both the Washington football team and the Giants in their division right now. Surprisingly enough, they're 3-5. In Washington and the Giants are both 2-6. So,
Yeah,
that's a little concerning. The only other team, the Falcons, maybe. I mean, there's
The
but
Dolphins are
and the
really
Dolphins. That
Dolphins are
was
really bad.
that was I was gonna wait because that was the one team I thought we might have some discussion on it. But the Dolphins, now they did play several games without Tua. Depending on how you feel about Tua, I don't think he is as bad as the backup quarterback play that was happening with Brissett. Even though I'm not high on Tua, I still think he is better than what we saw happening while he was out.
Oh yeah, yeah for sure.
So, and that's he was on IR, so that's 3 games that they had to play that affected their record by him not being out there. Um, but I think we're kind of at that line where teams like Miami, the Eagles,
Yeah,
Washington, where it could kind of go either way here. So you tell me, is there, the Eagles, Washington, Miami,
I'm all
the Giants?
yeah, I'm okay throwing because when it comes to bottom feeders, we're not only talking about the record, we're talking about the organization in general. And right now, especially with
Right.
the Deshaun Watson stuff going on down there in Miami, that seems like a pretty dysfunctional organization. They don't know what direction they want to go with quarterback. And anytime your quarterback does not feel wanted, and especially after that news came out where the Dolphins GM actually talked to Deshaun
Had a
Watson
meeting with Deshaun Watson.
over the
Yeah.
last week. I mean, that can't be good if you're Tua. You can't feel wanted in that organization. So
Put him here.
I would go ahead and throw them
I'm
in the
I'm good
bottom
with that too.
feeders. Yeah, because like I said, it's going to be hard to recover from that if you're an offense with seemingly no direction. And yeah, well, we'll see what happens. So
So
yeah, so
if we're
outside of
stopping
that,
there on
yeah,
bottom feeders,
yeah,
that kind
and
of
that's
gives us an idea on who should be in below average.
yes. So
Because we talked about like Washington was on the edge,
yes,
Philly was on the edge, the Falcons were on the edge. Um, those were three teams that
the
were brought up.
Giants.
The Giants were on the edge. That was another team that was brought up. Okay, so
Yeah,
our list is starting to get shorter here already.
yeah.
So now that we've got them out of the way, Carolina, I feel like they're
Um,
below average.
yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree.
Okay.
And they've actually have I believe
Christian McCaffrey did get designated to return from IR, so that's going to help.
yeah, but apparently he um he does not look comfortable right now from what I read today. Like there's still he's coming back from IR, but he is by no means looking like he's trending towards playing anytime soon. Um so that could be an issue as well as now Sam Darnold is in concussion protocol, I believe. So I believe Philip Walker, the backup there, he's been taking the first team reps this week. So we will see what happens with that. But yeah, as hot of a start as they got on, it's the wheels have really kind of come off of
Right.
that team, which I know a lot of it, the injury and stuff like that. But at the same time, man, like Sam Darnold is, I think the Gase damage might have already just been done.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm cool with those teams right there.
So
I don't.
there's two other teams I want to run by you to see
Okay.
that because I think this is kind of like where the tier from below average to average starts. And so the Chicago Bears is one. Do you consider them a below average team?
Um, depends. If Matt Nagy misses more games with COVID, I think they're average. Really, I mean, I think if he's done with COVID, you could probably put them up in Super Bowl contenders. Um, but
He's
but as
that
long as
bad.
Matt Nagy's there, it's I don't know. They're tough. Their defense is still really good. I still think Khalil Herbert has looked really good on there. That's the player that I told Jared. Jared was real big on Williams this last week. I told him Khalil Herbert has emerged. He's taken that
Oh, he is the
job.
clear running back
Yeah,
too. Like
yeah.
even
And he wanted
whenever
to
David
argue with me
Montgomery
about
comes
it.
back,
So,
yeah.
so yeah, get shit on. That's what we do.
So they're an
Uh,
average team, right?
yeah, I'm okay with them being average.
Okay. The other team that's kind of on that kind of teetering, and they're very similar to me to the Bears. They're like the AFC version of the Bears is the Denver Broncos.
the Broncos. You know, right now, especially with them trading Von Miller, which I know he hasn't played the last few weeks. They also have some injuries. I want to say they're below average. I think they're below average team.
I'm kind of feeling the same way, and I thought that might be where some discussion went because I thought you might have felt
Yeah, I
otherwise,
kind
but
of skipped over them because they don't really matter. Um, but but yeah, I think they're a below average team right now. And this is going halfway through the season.
right there's
Now
the
if this was
we're
2 or 3
8 weeks
weeks
deep,
ago, you're looking at an average team,
right?
but with what they've done over the last few weeks, I mean, like I said, they got rid of Von Miller. Clearly seems like they're going in a different direction as a team. They're wanting to get younger, rebuild, and possibly get that big fish quarterback to compete next year. Possibly, um, you know, Aaron Rodgers' name might come up depending on how that works out. Russell Wilson is another name that could be available. We will
Mhm.
see. So I think they're kind of loading up on picks to possibly go trade for one of these guys next offseason. But right now, it seems like they've just kind of shipped in uh, for the year. So yeah, I think the Broncos are below average.
I have no problem with that. Okay, so we've kind of ironed out the bottom. Let's iron out the very top because I feel like the big discussion is going to be what happens right
In the
here in the
middle,
middle.
yeah.
So
So
let's talk about
Super
the
Bowl
Super Bowl
contenders, that's
contenders.
pretty easy. I think you have the Green Bay Packers
Yep.
in there for sure. Um, the
The
Rams,
defending champs, the
yeah,
Tampa Bay
Tampa Bay,
Buccaneers.
pretty much the top of the NFC.
Right. So you got the
The
Rams
Rams, the
there,
Cardinals,
the
I
Cardinals.
think could be in there. Which
You want to put them deep in the playoffs, but you don't want to put them as Super Bowl contenders, don't you?
so look, I'm actually going to not put them deep in the playoffs. I think they might be pretenders. I think they
Yo,
might. I think they might. They're dealing with some injuries right now. That
I'm
defense,
putting them back down here for a second.
yeah,
Hold up.
yeah. That defense is really taking a step back without JJ Watt, which it's only been 1 week. But if this continues to be a trend, uh, this could be a team I see getting bounced out in the first round, especially if Kyler Murray, if there's any kind of, I know he's taken, he's on track to play, but he's not practicing this week. If this becomes a lingering issue, I could see that really hamstringing them. DeAndre Hopkins is hurt as well. Now AJ Green is in COVID protocols. Um, there's question marks on whether he'll be able to play coming up this week. There's a lot of stuff going over there in Arizona. So I don't know if their record necessarily is going to reflect because look, Green Bay walked into their home with banged up. They're throwing to Larry Curly
No
and Mo.
Devontae Adams, no Alan Lazard.
No MVS. I mean, you're like I said, they're throwing to Larry Curly and Mo out there, and they came into your house and they punked you. Um, so yeah, I don't know if I'm quite ready to throw them in the Super Bowl contenders. Um, and if this becomes a lingering thing, I could really see them being a first round exit, regardless of their record. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know if they win that division. I don't think they win that division.
That's where it gets problematic for me. If they win the division, I think so. If they win the division, I think they could be like a here to here. But
Yeah.
if they have to play a wild card game, if they don't win the
Yeah.
division, then yeah, maybe they're here.
Look, that's where I'm dropping them. Right, I'm calling my shot right now. I'm saying the Cardinals are pretenders in the playoffs.
Look, I'm a Rams fan. I want to be with you on this, but that game, the Rams versus Cardinals game, where the Cardinal, you talk about punking somebody, the Cardinals came into SoFi and punked the Rams. I have a
Yeah,
lot of
but see, that's the
trouble
thing is,
dropping
I
them from
think
anywhere from right
I
here.
think that was early. I mean, I think that was early in the season too. I mean, and
It was. It was
they
like
shit
week
on the
4,
yeah, and they shit on the Titans pretty hard too.
week
So
1. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, but I think that's a different Cardinals team than the team you're going to see going forward right now.
Oh, okay. We're gonna have to revisit the Cardinals
Yeah.
because that's really
So yeah,
tough.
so
That that
let's get
that's
back into
tough.
it. Buffalo Bills. I
Buffalo should
definitely
be in the
put
Super Bowl
Super
contenders.
Bowl contenders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and
All
to
right, so we're down to
me,
two
that
rows of teams here.
to me that pretty much sums up the actual like
You're not tempted
contenders. Um,
Baltimore?
yeah, Baltimore, I would put deep in the playoffs. I'm not going to put
Okay,
them up
they
there.
they're on the fringe right here
Yeah,
for me,
yeah,
man.
they're
Just
very fringe for me.
the
But
progression that Lamar's made as a passer, like
yeah,
I,
it's
I feel like
explosive.
I feel like they're coming off their bye this week. I feel
I
like
want to
he's about
see.
to go on a
Yeah,
tear.
yeah. I want to see a few more big wins from them because that Cincinnati loss really hurt for me,
Yeah, yeah, that
especially
was
considering
rough.
Cincinnati just lost to the Jets. So
So let's talk about them real quick. That's a good transition. Where before that Jets loss, I'm
I,
easily putting
look,
them right
yes,
here, even maybe
I
right
still
here.
I no, I don't know if they're necessarily up there with Super Bowl contenders. That's still kind of a leap for me to make, but I do think they are a deep in the playoff team. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if they'll even win the division because of Baltimore, but
I
I
think they
still
might end up being the AFC version of the Cardinals, man. Like you want to put them here, you feel like they should be here, but they're going to end up just being
I
the
think
Bengals.
I think the main thing though for me is that's surprising is the Bengals defense has just been lights out
Yeah, it's definitely improvements.
outside
Yeah.
of this last week where um what we'll see. I don't know if they're pretenders. I do think they're still a very good team. The Cardinals, on the other hand, um, they're dealing, like I said, they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now from very, very key players that I'm still worried about if they linger. Now, if they don't linger, I think they can make a run, but I need to see how the next 4 weeks really play out before I'm going to put them up there. Um, and like I said, I think this could be a first round exit. Even if they get a, even if they win the division, because right now you got to remember there's only one bye week,
Right.
and I think those three teams up there in the Super Bowl contenders in the NFC have a better chance to get one of those bye weeks, especially Green Bay with the division they play in. It'll be interesting to see that. All teams are going to have an off week. You're never going to go undefeated, regardless of how well you are. So I'm not going to put too much stock into the Jets game the Bengals played, the same way that the Saints
The
are a good
Titans
team.
got beat by the Jets too.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not putting them up there, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I think the Bengals. I think there's a lot better chance that they're more for real than they are pretenders.
Okay. So let's talk about
I
another.
say about 70-30 that I think that they're actually legit, as opposed to just being, a bad team that's gotten lucky to get to
They got a
Vegas.
lot of young talent, man. Regardless of how this season play out, Bengals fans should
And,
be
and
very
and that's
excited.
basically my faith in Joe Burrow.
Yeah, yeah.
I have
Burrow's
faith in Joe
he's
Burrow.
legit. Yeah. So let's talk about another very tantalizing NFC team, the Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys. I'm not
Because I know where
quite
I
ready.
stand, but I'm very
Yeah,
interested.
I want to put them in Super Bowl contenders. I want to. Uh, I'm just not ready to make that leap with them yet. I do think they are deep in the playoffs. I
Okay,
do.
we're cool then.
Yeah,
I agree.
I do think that's a team that could win the Super Bowl. And I mean, look, the Atlanta Braves just won the World Series. We can very easily see the Dallas Cowboys win the Super Bowl. This, party like it's 1995.
Look, literally, our Smash or Pass episode this past week. Whenever we were talking about quarterback sleepers or it was quarterback smash because we were talking about Kirk Cousins was our quarterback smash. I said on the show, Dak Prescott is not expected to play. I
Cooper
expect Kirk
Rush.
Cousins to play well, and I expect the Minnesota Vikings to win that game because everything last year showed us was that if Dak Prescott is not out there, the Cowboys are not winning the game.
Yeah.
And the Dallas Cowboys, without Dak Prescott, went in there and beat a very talented Minnesota Vikings team with
Yeah.
backup quarterback
Yeah.
Cooper Rush, who
Cooper
played
Rush played
well to his
great.
credit.
Yeah.
To his credit, he played well. But it just showed to me that this is a very different
It's a
Dallas Cowboys
yeah.
team.
It's a good team all
Yeah,
around.
they are a good team. And so yeah, I think at a minimum they have to be at that deep playoff run type of team to where if they're completely healthy going into the playoffs, if everything goes right for them, they're going to win the division. So they're going to get a home playoff game. They could absolutely be a team that ends up shaking up the NFC playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah, and that's a team that the strength of their team, that offensive line, and it's as long as they stay healthy. I mean, and we're going into this, basically assuming that they will stay healthy.
yeah, we're not going to assume anybody's going to be hurt.
Yeah,
But like they can.
which I know I said that with my Cardinals thing, that I needed to see a little bit more. But I think what's different with them is I think the loss of JJ Watt to that defensive line, even though he wasn't making the same splash plays that Houston made, it really showed up in that Green Bay game.
And he was really good.
Yeah,
Like
still really productive. Like I said, he wasn't
yeah,
making the defensive player of the year plays he was making, but he was still an upper tier level defensive lineman.
yeah,
Um,
he was a very disruptive player, while he was playing. So it is a significant
so yeah,
loss.
that's not me assuming injury. That's me knowing injury. Like it's already happened. I'm not assuming
Yeah.
he gets hurt. He's gone. So I mean, it'll be interesting for sure. Um,
So
so
a
you,
team that's been in the news plenty for negative reasons.
the Raiders.
Let's talk about the Raiders, man. Where do you sit with them? Because I know where I sit with them, but
Look, right now, you can only overcome so much. I think the John Gruden thing, um, they might have been able to overcome it, but now losing Henry Ruggs and having that dark cloud over the locker room.
it was in the middle of a
Um,
breakout year as well.
yeah, so yeah, it's not even counting on the field. This is just strictly talking in the locker room. I
Right.
mean, that's a team going through a lot of emotions right now.
And then
And
they're 5-2. They're on top of the AFC West right now. Like
yeah,
team
yeah,
wise, they're in a good spot,
playing great football. Derek Carr is playing the best football of his career. Dark horse MVP candidate right now.
which is
But
why I think they are playoff pretenders.
I agree. I don't need look, man. To even be
And I, I,
honest,
I struggle with the like between pretenders and
in
average.
average, yeah, I was gonna say I don't even know if they make the playoffs. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. I don't
If
know.
the Chiefs make a second half run, I don't think they will, because I think that the next team we're going to talk about, the Chargers, I think the Chargers are for real. I think the Chiefs could make a run. So
Yeah, so yeah, I would put the Raiders in the pretenders category.
yeah,
I agree. Which pains me to do because I don't think it's by any fault of their own. I think they have a really decent football team. Um, but I don't like I said, that's if there's just so much off the field that's happened to that team over the last 3 weeks, that it's just hard to overcome all that in one season because it's just one thing after another.
right.
And it's not little things. I mean, these are heavy, heavy things. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. I hope I'm wrong, just for the Raiders' sake, because like I said, they played their ass off this year, and they really do deserve a break for sure, over after all the stuff that's been going on. Uh, so yeah, you did want to bring up the other AFC West team with the Chargers. I think they're average. I think
Ooh,
yeah, I think they're average. I don't quite think they're there yet. I don't think they're pretenders. I think they are a good team, but I don't think they're on the level of the deep in the playoff teams. Definitely not in the Super Bowl contender teams.
no, yeah,
Um,
I would agree.
so that and they're definitely not pretenders, which only leaves us one category, and that's average. I think they're on the upper tier of the average teams. I think they're one of the better average teams, but Justin Herbert's kind of hit a little bit of a wall here recently. He's not playing his best football right now. I still think he'll be fine, but yeah, this is a team that kind of similar to like this Bengals game last week. Like they can lose to anybody and it wouldn't surprise me, or they could go into Baltimore or Buffalo and they could beat one of those teams and it's not going to surprise me. Um, so like I said, I don't think they're quite up there with the playoff contender type of teams, but I don't think they're pretenders yet either. So I think we should put them in the average category. I think they're an average team, but they're a good average team. They're very good.
Yeah, I mean, like if this was called like the playoff bubble, I would put them here because I feel like they're a playoff
Yeah,
team.
yeah, I think they make the playoffs. Which you can make the playoffs as an average team. I don't, there's plenty of
Yeah,
average teams that make the playoffs.
like
Saying you're average isn't a bad thing.
no, I just like it. I have trouble putting them below the Raiders, like tier wise, like the way the tiers are leveled. I have trouble putting them below the Raiders because I think that they're a better team. Even though the Raiders are a game up on them in the division, I think that
Well,
they are a better team than the
so I mean,
Raiders.
tier wise, I mean, I guess we could have, like reversed it because to me, average is better. Being in the average category is better than being in
Hey,
the pretenders
all
category.
I got to do is hit one button. So
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah.
Now
So
I
see,
feel
see
so.
that takes care of that.
So the Bears, do you still want them where they're at?
Yeah, I still think they're an average team. I don't think
Okay.
they're bad.
Okay.
But
All
see,
right.
the
So
pretenders are teams that are
this,
good. See, that's
I
the
already
thing is
feel
why it was
better.
not because the pretenders they're good teams that we just think that they're average teams moonlighting as good teams.
Right. Okay.
Um,
So now that we move that up one and we've got the Chargers here, I feel much better now.
which is weird
Now
seeing
I'm
the
good to
yeah,
go.
but see now it's weird seeing the Bears up there because the
I I
Bears are the Bears. I mean,
I
like I
think
said,
I think
they're
Nagy's the only thing
average.
holding them back though. I
Yeah,
really
like I
do.
said, they're average. I don't think they're better than the Raiders. I think
So
they're
do
about
we?
the same, I guess.
So
But
do you want to move them down here?
yeah, but see, they're not necessarily pretenders because they're not really in the playoff picture.
No, no. For the sake, it's different. The
Yeah,
the
which is why I
NFC is
wanted
so
to keep
top heavy.
pretenders up there. I mean, necessarily like the tiers, doesn't really matter as much as like what we're saying the tiers are. Like the Raiders are a good team that we just think are, you know, they're pretenders. Like they're going to get into the playoffs, if they even get into the playoffs, and then they're going to get bombed. The average category, you could make the playoffs and be okay. You could not make the playoffs at all. Um, so I mean, it's just a little bit of like verbiage, I guess, would be difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because like the next team we're going to talk about is another one that I struggle with. And it's a team that you and I were both really, really high on coming into the
Yeah.
season with the Cleveland Browns. That I don't know if they're just pretenders or if they're just a flat out average team. I don't think they're bad enough
I
to be
don't,
below
I don't, I
average.
was gonna say, like, I don't even think it's out of the question to say they're below average right now.
I don't think they're that bad. I don't view them in the same breath as I do the
But see
Eagles,
that, they're
Washington.
hard. See, they're hard to put in the pretenders category because they're what are they pretending to be? Like they're not necessarily a good team, which is why I wanted the Raiders up above
Yeah.
them. I think it just
Okay.
makes more
So we're
sense.
we're gonna flip these back to where they were.
Yeah, see, that makes
I
more
think
sense
I
to
think
me.
this is where Cleveland fits.
I think I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I think they're not as bad, which the point I would bring up too about like the Colts, like they're not as bad as what their record says they are. Um, they're still a decent team. They struggle in some areas that they need to get ironed out. So yeah, I'm okay with the Browns being average. Now, I mean, we'll see what happens with this Odell stuff if this like implodes the team, but
Right.
yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
Okay. So the New England Patriots, I know where I sit with them.
I
How
think
how
they're
do you
average.
okay, I agree. So
Look,
no argument there.
can I just say that I watched a little bit of Mac Jones film today? Actually, I got curious when I got home, and because I didn't see the games, so I was curious to see how Mac Jones has been doing. Um, I'll say it right now, that guy's gonna win some Super Bowls. Like that guy's gonna win some Super Bowls. Like he's that good. Like I'm not saying he's gonna win a Super Bowl this year. I'm not even saying he's gonna win a Super Bowl with Bill Belichick. I don't even know how long Belichick's gonna be coaching. But at some point in his career, Mac Jones will be a Super Bowl champion. Um,
Wow.
he is that man. He's so impressive. He's
You and
so
I
good.
come you and I have come away very differently
Yeah.
watching the Patriots. I'm not nearly as high on Mac like as
Some of
on
the
Mac
some of
Jones as
this
I thought it would be.
yeah some of the stuff that he's been doing, just man, like mechanically, like oh, his pocket presence, dude, is just if Patrick Mahomes, this is so weird to say, if Patrick Mahomes had the pocket presence of Mac Jones, we would not be talking about the Chiefs being disappointing right now.
Oh man, what world do we live in?
I know. I'm not saying that he's better. I'm just saying Mac Jones' pocket presence, even as a rookie, we're talking about elite, elite level. Like I'm talking about Tom Brady level is his ability to navigate a pocket. Um, it's man, it's so beautiful to watch. Um, and I like the main question mark I had, like I knew he was going to be like even coming out of Alabama, which he was, like I said, he was the least favorite of our quarterbacks, which isn't saying it because we thought this quarterback class was loaded. So, um, or actually Zach Wilson was my least favorite, but um, I've even kind of come around on him. My biggest question was I didn't think he was going to be able to make NFL throws. Um, I thought his arm was just too weak to push the ball down the field, which they don't do a ton of. But some of the throw, like he made a throw to Nelson Aguilar over this last week. I don't know if you saw it or not, where he basically just navigated a couple pass rushers, stepped up, and I mean just threw like a 40-yard, like it was a strike, like it was a fastball. Just oh man, like it was really impressive. Mac Jones has really grown on me, and I'm comfortable saying I think Mac Jones will end up being the best quarterback in this class. I think he'll be better than Trevor Lawrence. Just
Whoa.
yeah, dude, I'm dropping bombs. Like I've been that impressed with Mac Jones this year. Now he is in a much better situation than a lot of those guys are, but man, just from like a pure football perspective, just watching these guys, and maybe the Alabama thing even got to me a little bit because he's playing with all stars basically. Like everybody's going to look good
NFL
with
talent every
Alabama.
week in college.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean everybody's going to look good there, but like he's really impressive, man. Like from just a quarterbacking perspective, like he's really impressive, and I think he's going to be the main reason why this New England team they're looking as well as they have been because his ability to run an offense. Um, Now I don't know how much room for growth he has. I don't know how much better he can get. I think he can get more comfortable for sure, but um, and as we've seen, with guys like Brady, who I think he's very similar to, um, the uh, the more comfortable he gets with running the offense and uh, making those checks, making the audibles, making the correct play. And we've seen it whenever, the success that they've had running the 2-minute drills, like whenever they get into hurry up, how successful they've been. Um, I think that kind of shows you a little bit of his growth. Um, but yeah, I don't know how much better he can get from a um, talent standpoint. I think his talent isn't quite as high as guys like Fields and Lance and Lawrence. Obviously, I don't think he has the talent of those guys. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he's a more talented football player, but I will tell you right now, he's a better football player. There's a difference between being a more talented guy. Patrick Mahomes is more talented than Tom Brady's ever thought of being in his life at playing football. Tom Brady's a better football player than Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's no.
I get what you're coming from.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I'm not saying and that's the thing with the draft is like, yeah, like you draft for talent because if a guy like Trevor Lawrence hits his ceiling, or a guy like Trey Lance hits his ceiling, they're going to do things that Mac Jones can only dream of doing. You're going to have like a Josh Allen, where Josh Allen's just, that's a guy that comes out that he wasn't a better football player than a lot of those guys that were drafted ahead of him coming out of the draft, but he had more talent, which is what the Bills do. Um, Now, if you develop that talent and you maximize that talent, then yeah, you have an MVP candidate and a possible Super Bowl contender every year. They're that good. But I think just from a football perspective, Mac Jones is easily been the best quarterback out of all the rookies this year. I mean, easily, like no question.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
have any problem with that statement.
but I'm telling you right now, just watching game film on him and just the nuances of the quarterbacking position that not a lot of people that, like, if you're just an average fan or even some above average fans, and I'm not trying to toot my horn or anything here, I'm not trying to get into any of that, but I mean just little nuances of like quarterbacking, like eye movement, reads, like I said, the way he can navigate his shoulders and the way he squares up, with the lower half of his body, his release. Man, his release is beautiful. His wind up, the way he holds the ball. Um, there's no wasted motion. There's no pat. There's no pat throw. It's literally just pop. It's gone. I mean, it's just little nuances of quarterbacking that you watch with Mac Jones, and you're just like, that's elite. Like that's some elite level shit. Um, and I fully understand why there were rumors about him going top 3 now. Because like I said, I don't know if I was blind about the Alabama thing, or I did have question marks on his arm that have been answered now. I think he can make any throw on the field. Now, I don't think he's going to be on his back foot throwing 60 yards on the field. But I think if you allow him to step up into the pocket and make some throws, he can make any throw as long as, he has the ability to step up. He's not going to escape pressure very much, but you're not going to have very many opportunities to pressure him as he gets more comfortable. He's very much that prototypical Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Like, God, his release is so quick, man. It's so quick. It's so impressive. That get your hands on him while you can right now if you're a defensive player. Because once that guy gets comfortable in that offense and he knows where he's going with that ball, and I fully expect him to over the next couple of years, you're very rarely going to get a chance to sack that guy. And that's my Mac Jones spill. So,
so next team up, the Tennessee Titans. I know where I feel about them, especially after Derrick Henry injury.
yeah,
I think they're going to make the playoffs, but I don't expect them to make a deep run. So I think that they're pretenders.
Yes, I agree. I put them in the pretenders because I still think
now,
they win the division. The lead's just too big there.
They were borderline right here prior to the Derrick Henry injury for me, and that's where I feel for them now.
No, even with that Derrick Henry injury, that defense is still it was too bad for them.
That defense was too bad for them to beat Buffalo. It was too bad for them to be able to beat Kansas City. It was too bad for them to be able to sweep the Colts. They weren't supposed to win any of those games, and then somehow they did. So I was teetering putting them there.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing is, I think a lot of those games had a lot more to do with what the other teams did or didn't do, as opposed to what the Titans did to stop them. That Buffalo game,
teams have to execute.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, you have to execute.
But I don't think they were executing because the Titans were shutting them down. I think they just had the Titans, man. Like, I will say this. They're very lucky.
You can call it what you want, but somehow
I'll call it what I want. To me, like they were pretenders even before the Derrick Henry injury.
It's a much more boring conversation now because Henry is out, so we don't have to speculate.
Yeah, well, regardless, for sure. So the Minnesota Vikings are on here. I think they are average. I think that's an average football team.
Yeah, I think they could also be pretenders just because I do think that they could possibly slide into a wild card spot in the NFC. But I don't think that they're like prior to the Daniel.
I would be okay putting them in the pretenders category.
It's like it's these next three teams on as far as the NFC goes. These next three teams are like, we've got the Cardinals we've somewhat touched on already, but these next three teams are the three teams of note in the NFC. Like somebody is going to be a wild card team. Like you've got the Packers are going to win the NFC North. The Bucks are going to win the NFC South. The Cowboys are going to win the NFC East. One of the Cardinals or the Rams are going to win the NFC West. So that leaves the Vikings, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. And they're the next three teams right here in a line. So let's just iron these three teams out. Where do these three teams sit? Who's going to make the playoffs? Who is I don't think either one of us would have any of these teams as like a deep playoff team, right?
No.
Okay, so which of these teams are
Seattle,
pretenders?
I would give a better chance to be a deep playoff team just because if Russell Wilson
comes back healthy, right?
Yeah, he gives you that opportunity to win every single game. But I still don't know if they're a good enough team around him. So I would, in all honesty, I would put all three of these teams in the pretenders category. Maybe the Seahawks would be an average.
Yeah, see, I think one of them has to filter down to average because I think
Seattle, I would be more comfortable with being average. I think Seattle's an average team, and that's with Russell Wilson.
Okay, so we'll put the Vikings and the 49ers.
I think 49ers for sure are pretenders.
Okay. So that brings us back to the AFC now at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think the Steelers are an average team. I'm okay with them being an average team. I think the defense and Najee and a couple of those skill position guys, I think they're good enough to get them into the playoffs, into the wild card. But with the state that Big Ben is in, I don't necessarily know if they can actually make a run.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they make a run either. Which brings us to a very weird position to where, beginning of the year, if you would have asked me this, I'd been like, oh, Super Bowl contenders, easy. The Kansas City Chiefs deserve to be right up here. Yeah. Where in the world do we put the Kansas City Chiefs?
So what's crazy is right now, in all honesty, I think Kansas City is a below average team right now. just speaking right now, I think they're below average. Going forward, which I don't know if that's what we're projecting here. I think it is.
It's an
Um,
outlook thing. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
kind
So
of.
so going forward, I think they will be an average team. Um, I don't think they're as bad as they are, but I still there's just so many question marks on that team, um, that I think they're not a good team. They're not a they're not a bad team. They're not as bad as what they have been.
They're
But
not they're not as bad as the Eagles, Washington, the Giants, the
no,
Panthers.
but
They're not on
but
that level.
no, and I think that is because you have guys like Mahomes and Andy Reid and um, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelsey, like those guys. They're not gonna let you fall too far down, because just they're elite players at their position.
Right.
But the rest of the roster around them, as well as the decision making of Patrick Mahomes, um, and some of these throws that he's been making, that it's funny too, is like we had the whole spiel a couple weeks ago where like I basically kind of broke down like some of the big issues with his mechanics and
Hmm.
pocket navigation. It's funny that Dan Orlovsky actually came out. Did you see that today? And he said on ESPN, Dan Orlovsky said, right now Patrick Mahomes is the worst quarterback mechanically
Oh,
in the
I did see
NFL.
that. Yeah. Look, bad
And
process, good
then
results.
I can't remember who it was too. It was an offensive line guy. It might have even been Jeff Schwartz. I'm not for sure, so I don't want to quote him on that. But there was a big offensive line guy that talks a lot of football on Twitter that came out and said that unless Patrick Mahomes' navigation in the pocket and the way he constantly is drifting, that offensive line has actually been really good, and most of these hits um, have been on Mahomes. And I was yes, yes, give me the I don't know what you would necessarily call that.
Confirmation bias
Yes,
type of thing.
yes. Yeah, I just I want to make sure what I'm seeing is what these guys that have played in the NFL, like they're seeing the same things that I see, and that makes me like be like, okay, so I'm not fucking crazy. Like so we
Right.
can kind of like we are amateur experts. We're still experts, just on an amateur level.
Right.
Um, yeah, so yeah, just more little confirmation bias for me on that. So yeah, I think they're an average team, but they got a lot of stuff to figure out, and if they don't get it figured out, they're gonna fall down in that below category. Um, so I mean, but but this is us, especially me, which I'm sure you too. This is us giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt all the way up to the point of putting them in the deep in the playoffs point, but there's just nothing that I've actually watched. That's just me like knowing, trusting Andy Reid and knowing that what Patrick Mahomes is capable of and things like that. Like that's the level of benefit of the doubt I want to give them, but nothing that I've watched with the games that I've watched from Kansas City backs that up. So I can't, I just can't push for that because there's just nothing that's been put on film that makes me believe that any of that is true. That's just how highly I think of Andy Reid and Mahomes and guys like that. But there's just no no film that backs that up to this point in the year. So now we get to your team. So I'm interested to see what level you would put them at.
I think they're average. Um, I I don't think they're as bad as what their record shows,
I agree.
but they're I still don't think they're a good team. Um, and it's similar to Kansas City. Like they have a lot of stuff that they need to figure out. Now, if they can figure it out, um, I I think they could be.
This is where I kind of wanted to slot him in that, to be honest with
Yeah,
you,
I
because
mean,
I
I don't
think with
think you
everything
can.
going on,
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't.
that they make the playoffs, but I don't think that they would
I
be able to make much
no
noise once they get
no
there.
no. I don't think they make the playoffs. I
I think
don't.
the Colts still make the playoffs this
No
year.
no. I don't. I think.
Okay.
Um. I think the hole that they've dug with their record is just. I mean, you're basically counting on Tennessee. Like Tennessee would basically have to go like three. They'd have to like lose like 3 games the rest of the year or win 3 games the rest of the year, and then the Colts would have to win because there's 9 games left. Um, and you got to think Tennessee's schedule is a lot easier. The Colts still have to play
Tennessee's schedule is easier.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Colts still have to play the Raiders. They still have to play the Bills. They still have to play the Buccaneers. Um, and right now, you can't with any confidence say that they're going to win any of those games. So you're looking at best, you're looking like at the very best at a 9-8 record. Um, and with the way things have been going for them right now, unless Frank Reich just has a epiphany that um, if he's able to look in the mirror and get better, they might be able to go on a run. This team's done it before, but as of right now, I'm not willing to make that call. So I think they're average. I said I don't think they're as bad as their record says, but at the same time, I think they've just dug too far of a hole to crawl themselves out of. This last week um, was really, I mean, it was a really big nail in that coffin because if they find a way to win this game last week, and then on top of that, Derrick Henry's gone, and we play the Jets, they play the Rams. You're looking at them having a split in division with the exact same records, after this next week, where they play the Rams and the Colts play the Jets, and then we get Jacksonville next week as well. So you're even looking, if Tennessee loses that game without Henry, you're looking at having a 1-game lead in the AFC South, and you're home free. So them not winning this game this last week, it's almost a nail in the coffin for them. So their best hope right now is for one of these teams like in Oakland or Kansas City or the Chargers or the Steelers or even New England. Like one of these teams has to have a massive collapse, and the Colts are going to they're going to have to go on a run. They're going to have to beat one, probably a couple out of the Tampa Bay. They play Arizona, Tampa Bay, Buffalo, and Oakland.
Yeah, it's a brutal schedule.
So I mean, and they're going to have to win a couple of those. Now, luckily, they do get the Texans, they do get the Jaguars twice, they do get the Jets this week. So there's plenty. There's a 4 or 5 very winnable games that if they can, win a couple of the hard games, which they've shown they can play with the Rams, they can play with the Baltimore Ravens, they can play with the Titans. They're not outmatched by any of those teams, but they have to find a way to win those games. And if they don't, especially like right now, they can't afford another loss. I mean, if they lose this game tomorrow,
Yeah.
you're even putting them in the below average category.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this might be outside of maybe the Cardinals, the Colts might be like the most mercurial team in the NFL right now, where like they haven't opened. The Titans losing Derrick Henry. If the Titans, if that's as big as a blow as what people think it will be, they've given them just a tiny bit of life. And if they can't capitalize on that, and then and right now I don't think they will. I think the Titans. I still think they find a way to win a few more of these games, and in that easy schedule to close out that division. And right now, I don't think the Colts are better than the Chargers. I don't think they're better than the Steelers or the Patriots right now. And those are the teams that I would have in the wild card at the moment. So yeah, I think the Colts missed the playoffs this year.
Be interesting to see how it plays out. So the next team, the New Orleans Saints. I think they're pretenders. I think they're an average team, but I think they could find themselves in the pretender category, kind of right here.
For sure. I mean, with Jameis being out, because now you're trusting Taysom Hill to lead you at the quarterback position, unless they make a move for Cam Newton or somebody like that.
And it doesn't sound like they're going to.
Yeah. I mean, I want to put them, that defense is really, really good.
Right.
Sean Payton has done a really good job, but now Michael Thomas has announced he's out for the year. I know you're really excited about that. And then
So
yeah, Jameis being out for the year.
this is
granted,
this is
Jameis
why this is why I kind of land on pretenders for them. I think they have a decent shot, even with Jameis's injury, of making the playoffs
they
because
could in
you've
the
got
NFC.
exact because it's so top heavy. Like the Cowboys are going to make it out of the NFC East, and there's no wild card team coming out of the NFC East. The NFC West, you've got the Cardinals and the Rams, but both the 49ers and the Seahawks are both struggling. And then the NFC North, you've got the Packers clearing away, and then the Vikings are kind of teetering. I mean, they're 3-4 right now. They just lost Danielle Hunter, and we've got them in the pretenders category. And then you've got the NFC South. You've got the Buccaneers as the clear leader there, and then you've got the Saints at 5-2. They've got a really good defense, a really good head coach, a head coach that's very familiar with what they have to get done, even
Probably the
if
coach of the year up to this point with what he's been able
possibly
to
so.
do.
Possibly so. Yeah. So I think that there might be a way that this team gets, like, we're talking about like a 6 seed, 7 seed in the playoffs, to where they make the playoffs, but I don't think they make any noise if they get there. Like that they've got one of the better records in football right now. Maybe they squeeze
But
in.
I mean, but it's kind of similar to the Titans.
Exactly, which is yeah,
not
that's
to that
part of,
kind of not to that degree, but yeah, I mean, like really good record, possibly could make some noise, but now you just lost one of your most, if not the most important players on your
right. Say
team.
what you want about Jameis, but he was playing good enough football. He was playing decent football for the majority of the year. So that's why I kind of put them in the pretenders, because I think that they are very similar to I think they're kind of like the NFC version, which are with a much better defense of the
Yeah,
Titans. So that's why I think that they would be, kind of pretenders right now. Like if you're just looking at record, they look really good, but I don't think that they're as good as they look.
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think the Jameis news is it's bigger than what people think.
So now we got one team left.
The Arizona Cardinals. Look, I'm sticking by my prediction. I'm going to put them in the pretenders category. I think they do get into the playoffs, but I think they're a first round exit. I really do. I think they're going to, and this is a young team. That's, you know,
For the most part,
yeah,
yeah.
like
They've got some veterans that they've brought in, but yeah.
yeah. And so, I mean, I think they still need, as we always know with teams, especially to this, like you got to have a little playoff heartbreak before you get to celebrate. Um, you don't just get to go straight into the Super Bowl. That's not how things usually work out. Um, so I mean, even the Chiefs, over the last few years, they had the playoff heartbreak of Mahomes' 50 touchdown season with Tom Brady spoiled the surprise for them and sent them home. So yeah, to me they're pretenders, and like I said, I still think they make the playoffs, but it'll be interesting to see how these injuries linger and if Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, look, he's gonna have his work cut
If
out
he's
for him.
legit or not,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's gonna have his work cut out for him. I'm interested to see how they bounce back from a lot of these, because last year it was a very similar situation where they had a very good record almost halfway through the season. I want to say they were 5-2, and then they just collapsed in the second half of the season. So I'm interested to see if they've learned from that or not.
So I'm going to tell you that was the second hardest decision for me, this in terms of teams. The hardest one, and the one that I feel like I might end up regretting, is right here. I want to take the Los Angeles Chargers, and I want to put them right here so bad, just because of the faith that I have in Brandon Staley. And Justin Herbert has proved me wrong, even though he's had a couple of down weeks. I feel like that the upside with this guy is tremendous. This is the one that I feel like I'm going to regret right
I mean,
here.
I
That's the one for me, man.
yeah,
I feel
I
like that
I won't argue against it. I
they
still
feel
think
like the
they're
AFC team to me that could even more so than possibly even Cincinnati. I feel like they could really, and I like Joe Burrow more than I do Justin Herbert, but I like Brandon Staley more than I do Zach Taylor. It's just like, man, it is so tough. It's so these two teams right here, I'm going to put them side by side for a second. The
Yeah,
Chargers and Cincinnati. I'm
yeah,
very interested to see how these two teams play out and what's legit, what's not legit. You know,
yeah. I'm not, yeah, I'm very curious for sure. Um,
that one's tough, man.
I'm okay with throwing them up there. I really am. I'm okay with that. Because they can get hot and they have a really talented roster. I mean, they could make a playoff run, but like I said, I think they're still at that. I still I think they're at the upper tier of the average team. I think they're definitely the best of the teams in the average tiers.
Yeah, I agree. I
Um,
think that they're better than every team in that tier,
yeah,
and I think that they're better than every team. And granted, we've already discussed this. The pretender is an average. Like it's not necessarily better to be a pretender than it is to be average, even though
right.
pretender is above average. But like, I think they're better than every team listed in average or pretenders.
I
Um,
agree. I agree with that.
so it's tough, man. It's tough. That's the one that I struggled with. Like that
Yeah,
that was just that
they're
was
them
the
in Arizona.
yeah, those
Arizona
were
might have an argument, but the
those were
Arizona
easily
one
the two
might
most
Arizona one
tantalizing.
might be the one that comes back to bite me the most. Either that or the Cincinnati putting them deep in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
yeah.
But
It-
I'm trusting Joe Burrow. I do. I got a lot of trust in Joe Burrow. Um, so
'Cause
yeah,
we've got three NFC Super Bowl contenders to only one AFC Super Bowl contender.
it
But
basically is, man. That the NFC playoffs are going to be a bloodbath.
yeah, because I mean, there's right now there's five legit NFC teams. Just looking at how they perform through 8 weeks, you've got the Packers, the Bucks, the Rams, the Cowboys, and the Cardinals. There's only seven playoff spots,
Yeah,
and there's five teams playing really, really, really good football
yeah.
right now.
And see, like with the AFC too, like I mean, Baltimore is right on that line of
Yeah,
being.
I kind of wanted to put them up here.
I
Like
wouldn't, like I said, I
I
wouldn't be opposed to it honestly, but I like I said, I still need to see a little bit more, especially with how injured they are. I mean, they're
that's the
very
thing that sucks with them,
yeah,
man. Yeah,
they're
is if they
very
were fully healthy, if they had
yeah.
Marcus
I
Peters, if
think
they
fully
had J.K.
healthy,
Dobbins, if they
man. I
had
think
Gus
fully healthy,
Edwards.
you're probably looking at them as being even better than Buffalo is. Fully healthy.
Yeah, very
Um,
possible. Yeah,
because right now, I mean, to me though, like with the way Cincinnati went in there and just, I
it's
mean,
tough, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
and but then like you turn around and you see Cincinnati lose to the Jets, and then you see like it's just
yeah,
if we did this 3 weeks from now, this list probably looks completely different all over again.
oh yeah, for sure.
The
I
NFL is
guarantee.
just, it's
Look,
so
man, if we did this
crazy.
next week, it would look different.
Yeah, probably. The NFC there or the NFL is just
It's a week. It's a
such
weekly
a week.
league.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a week to week thing, especially like we spent the first hour plus just talking about the news that had happened over the last like 3 days.
3 days. 3 days.
I mean,
Yeah,
the NFL is crazy, man.
it
Which
is,
is why we
man.
spend so much time talking about it. We
It
say we're a
is.
foot, we say we're more than a football show, but then so much football shit happens that we don't have time to talk about anything
Yeah,
else.
like I said, like we haven't even really mentioned like outside of like my joke about the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl. Like we haven't even talked about the Braves winning the World Series. Like
No,
that's a
that
big
happened.
thing. Yeah, like
Yeah. And hopefully we'll give it its time, its due diligence, because it deserves more than a 30-second mention right at the end. Like, so hopefully, maybe next week the NFL is a little bit more calm and we can talk about that a little bit more in detail. Because I mean, at that point, um, MLB teams are going to have to be deciding on who they want to give options to and extending qualifying offers, and like free agency is really going to get kicking. I think it's like the 7th or the 9th of November, sometime next week. The NFL free or NBA MLB free agency and things like that really starts to kick off. Now the MLB free agency is more of a marathon than a sprint. So I don't know if we'll necessarily have a ton of news on where players are going, but things will at least start getting started, and we'll have an idea of what teams with team options and qualifying offers and stuff like that will start to roll in. So maybe we get some more baseball in next week if the NFL season can just chill out for a week. But
yeah, no kidding.
um, not gonna hold my breath on that one because damn, the NFL is a crazy league, and even with a boring trade deadline, there was still so much to talk about, which is crazy. So, um, yeah, I mean, I for one, I'm always going to be for more baseball talk. I love baseball, so if we can squeeze more baseball talk in it, I will always be for it. But I love football too, and this league does, especially during the season, just does not take a day off. So
No,
we'll see.
the NFL is king for a reason. Uh, so yeah, I think that pretty much clears out what we wanted to do. I know this was a long show once again, which I like doing these. It's just
These
fun.
midweek shows are gonna be some marathons and not a sprint.
Yeah, because
That's just
there's so
how it
much to
is
talk
now.
about, especially now that we're
Yeah.
actually getting into like really getting into the thick of the season, like where we're learning, some of these teams, like pretenders, average, deep in the playoffs. We're learning a lot more, and we're able to talk about a lot more stuff that happens. So, um,
I think this would be a fun exercise to do again, like 3, 4 weeks from now too, and
yeah.
just see,
Oh yeah.
compare this screenshot
Yeah,
right here to the one we do a month from now.
yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. I wish we could live stream me watching the game tomorrow. If we lose, like
Oh
I wonder
God.
if there's like a explicit YouTube channel that you could put on uh the rant that I would go on.
We'll just have
Uh,
to put in the description, just have to put 18 plus, just
yeah,
to cover our asses.
I have to throw the video up on Pornhub. It's because it's gonna be so like
Most
NC.
fan gets fucked.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's how I felt pretty much all season. So yeah, well, we'll end it here. We'll let you guys actually go to sleep because we got to go to sleep, and we'll let you do the outro as always, and we'll get prepared for Smash and Pass Week 9 coming up here in a couple of days.
Yeah, right around the corner. So, as always, first and foremost, thank you guys for listening. Whether you listened to the whole thing or whether you saw we were doing a tier list and you went down to the description and you clicked on the little time key that took you straight to the tier list, regardless of how you got here, we appreciate you being here. If you liked what you heard even a little bit, we would appreciate you guys to, follow, subscribe, whatever the case may be. Anywhere a podcast can be found, we're there. So, whatever that platform would like for you to do, we also would appreciate if you would do it. Apple, Spotify, Google, any of that stuff. And then, of course, if you want the visual to go with the audio, we're on YouTube as well. So if you could head over there, subscribe to the channel, make sure you click that little bell when it pops up so that you can be notified of the newest uploads. We're only, putting out 2 shows a week. So your phone's not going to get blown up with notifications, but you'll be made aware when the new ones go up. And like Landon mentioned, we've got our week 9 Smash or Pass right around the corner. That'll be going live bright and early Saturday morning. And look, for what it's worth, week 8 Smash or Pass went really well. And so, if you listen to that, hopefully you made some smart start sit decisions off of that. And hopefully, you made some smart decisions on your DFS lineups based on who we said was going to do well and who was not. Um, because you could have made some money that way. So,
Hell yeah.
hopefully week 9 will be a little bit more of the same. So hopefully you guys can, join us for that as well. And, that'll same deal. That'll be going up on YouTube, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you can find us. We're there. So any love and support we can get, we appreciate it. And then of course, as always, while you're here on YouTube, if you're here, make sure you like the video. That helps us out a lot. And anything we said that you agree, disagree on, teams that you think should be in a different tier, whatever the case may be, hop in the comments and let us know. Not only does it help us out from an algorithm standpoint, but we also love the interaction. We love to be able to continue the discussion in the comments. We're going to jump down in there with you guys and hash this thing out. So, if you disagree with anything that you heard, don't be shy to let us know. So, but as always, the main thing is thank you guys for the support. We appreciate it.
Yes, for sure. Thank you guys so much. And we will see you here in a couple of days. Like I said, week 9 Smash or Pass. Get ready to go.